is a presentation of the Logan Media Network.
As far back as we can see, 1931 was the first season of Bruce High School football. Head coach A.J. Britt led the Trojans. 1931 actually played a couple of games through 1935, a record of 3-4. Fast forward, we picked things up. In 1974, a young man by the name of Keith Steele, head coach at Bruce from 1974 to 1978, and then begins the winning. A record of 39-13, but it's not all about the wins. It's not all about the losses. You can date back all the way to 1967 through 1969. Head coach J.V. Swindle would become a leader to so many men that he would teach on the football field. Only a record of 4-21-2, Coach Swindle would be a name that will be synonymous with Trojan football. Hello, I'm Brad Logan, and welcome to an oral history of Trojan football. A look back at the special seasons as we chronicle the years from 1974 to 2015, titled, This is Trojan Football. Like many of you, our lives have been shaped by what Trojan football means to us. Whether it's a player, a coach, a fan in the stands, Trojan football is much more than just a Friday night. It's how we were raised. We learned discipline. We learned how to respect our elders. We learned right from wrong. We learned how to be a better person. I appreciate you listening. Did this for you. Did this for all the fans, all of our coaches and former players. And unfortunately, some of those are no longer with us. Did this for them too. They mean a lot to me. We've missed so many of our coaches along the way. We lost Coach Steele a couple of years ago. Lost Coach Pope. And of course, we lost Coach Yarber. But he's still with us. And so are so many of the players that have gone on. By the way, here's Coach Yarber from 1984, before the big game against Lafayette.
Well, Lafayette High School, Lafayette Junior High, they always get out about 150, 200 boys, and that's who we have Tuesday night. And we feel like if we can beat Lafayette, we can win it all. My first unit this year is as big as I've seen in junior high in a long time. We have some real power running backs, and our line, we have 3 boys on the line that average over 200 pounds. And so we feel like we have a real big first unit. Second unit's kind of small, but they're gritty, they get after.
But he was right. He always coached a hard-nosed team. We were always disciplined under Coach Yarber. A few years before, a young coach would get his first head coaching job. Resident of Vardaman, Mississippi, head coach Terry Allen. Here's Terry Allen being interviewed prior to a big game as a head coach against North Panola.
Well, that's hard to say. Right now, my mind's on North Panola. I feel like that's going to be real tough. They've got a good football team. They've got the best team that they've had in several years. They were picked last in our conference, and they've come up already and won 2 ball games, and everybody I've talked to says they look real good, not even like they have in the past. And so I expect a real hard game Friday night. Coach
Terry Allen would coach from 1979 to 1984, compiling a record of 42-20. He was a great coach. Very impressive, too. 22-7 in the division. And by the way, that division was absolutely loaded. After Coach Allen headed off to Water Valley, my dad stepped in. Here's an interview with my dad, Darrell Logan. His first head coaching job against Calhoun City.
Yes, we've been looking forward to it ever since the beginning of practice, and we've worked real hard, and I know Coach Moore of Calhoun City, and I know they've worked real hard, and I look for a fine football game tonight because I know that he'll do a good job over there. Yeah. Well, we just came out of the pep rally a few minutes ago, and everyone seems to be way high up in the air over the game, and I know I am. I tell you, it's a feeling that you can't get in any other profession, I guess you might say, and it's a great feeling. It should be a good one. I know Calhoun City is going to really be coming over here after us, and I just know that Coach Moore's going to do a fine job. I've coached against him the last 2 years, and And I think he's won one and I've won one. So, you know, we've battled before, and he does an excellent job. And I really look for him to have a fine football team. And you know, I think we have a great football team. We have some fine football players, and they have really worked hard. And I can't commend them enough of how good of young men that they've showed in their practice and in their work. And, you know, I just think we have a real fine football team, and I look for a fine football game tonight.
That would be the first of two stints for my dad as head coach. 1985 to 1987, and of course, from 1992 to 1994. Looking back on that 85 to 87 run, 22-9, 11-6 in the division. And then his second run, 1992 to 1994, 25-10, 13-2 in the division, and a career that unfortunately was cut short due to illness. In between stints for my dad, Coach Dennis Robbins came over from Texas. But while he was here, 20-7, 7-2 in the division from 1990 to 1991, played for a state championship. We all remember that Greenville-St. Joe game. Then, of course, my dad steps down, and there was only one man for the job. Phil Ferguson stepped in and had one of the best runs in program history. In 1995 to 1999, he won 52 games, only lost 16 in an incredible 22-5 record in the division. Coach Ferguson, of course, won the state championship in 1996 before saying goodbye to Bruce. Coach Rudy Pope was here as a Trojan for a couple of years, but what we all remember about Coach Pope was how much he loved us, all of his sayings, and how much we appreciated what a great offensive line coach he was. He didn't have a ton of success as a head coach, but Coach always got up for Calhoun City and beat the Wildcats more than once. And we're grateful for that, and we miss him. Mark Grubbs came in and really catapulted upon that junior high program, 31-15 from 02 to 05. Was 15-8 in the division. Then James Ray from 2006 to 2015. The all-time winningest coach at Bruce. 66 wins, 55 losses, and a number of playoff runs. Hope you enjoy it. And now, this is Trojan football.
Dear high school football player, dear Trojan football player, when you run into the field this season, do me a favor. At least once, pause. Look around you. Look at the lights in the sky. See the faces of those who have come to see you play. Listen to the band. Listen to the band play the horse. Listen to the cheerleaders. Look into the eyes of your teammates. Take it all in. When you're older and you miss this amazing and wonderful game that you're playing right now, you'll be glad that you did. Coach Richard Russo, assistant football coach, Bruce Trojans, 2001 to 2006.
Chapter 1, A Boy from Vardaman. Here's head coach Terry Allen. 1979 to 1984. And that's when,
right.
Yeah, and a heck of a record, 42-20, and playing competition that teams this day and age aren't playing. I mean, you played some really tough teams back then.
Well, we did. Especially people, the big dogs we played, our big rivalries, I have to say, was Lafayette and Senatobia.
Yeah.
And we beat them a few times. And then Charleston was a really good team back in those days. And, of course, Calhoun City had good teams, too. So there's a lot of good games. It was an interesting time.
I was sent a picture as I've been deep diving through the history of Bruce football, and there was a picture of you, and Coach Steele was on a knee. It's on the front page of the paper. And there were a couple other coaches standing alongside you. One of them was Coach Pulliam. What did you learn under Coach Steele? Specifically that of what kind of led you to be, number one, a football coach, but number two, to be a head football coach and to kind of lead this team for a couple of years.
Well, of course, I grew up in Vardaman, and I love sports, and I was in all four sports I had at Vardaman. That was football, basketball, track, and I say football, basketball, track, and baseball. That was my four sports, and of course, I wasn't that great an athlete, but I was fortunate enough, in a small school, if you just get out there and get after it, you probably gonna get to play a lot. And I did, and I tell you what, my parents, they were the kind of people thought a lot of teachers and coaches, and they thought coaches were really special people, and maybe that's why I kind of want to be a coach. I want to stay in athletics, so I went to college and went to Mississippi State, and I majored in PE and coaching and history, like a lot of coaches do. So I had job offers. Back at that time, it was a teacher shortage. And I graduated in '72 at Mississippi State, and I had a job offers in Georgia and in Florida, and but anyway, I was a good friend with John Burr, who was superintendent. He had coached me in Florida, and so anyway, I just called him and I said, I'm looking for a job, because I was engaged to be married that summer, and I knew I needed a job, and I really didn't want to move out of state. So anyway, he said, well, there may be a job opening at Bruce. And so I went up and talked to Mr. Hamlin, and he hired me, gave me my first assistant coaching job. And Tiny Murphy was the head coach. He coached there 3 years. And I really thought Tiny, put an emphasis on football that maybe hadn't been there in a while. And then Coach Steele came in my 4th year. And Coach Steele was just a really good football coach. He was real fundamental and was pretty simple, but just a real fundamental coach, and related good to the kids and the community, and I watched him do a lot of those things, and kind of do things like he thought they should be done, and so I was assistant coach under him 3 years, I guess. Let's say 4 years, 3 under Tanny and 4 under Keith, and then. And I tell you what else too, I had to mention. For some reason, I don't know why, but I always really liked school in general. I mean, I like school. I like to go. I like kids and what goes on in school, and I enjoyed teaching about as much as I did coaching football. And so it was just a Lord blessing. I had a great job, and I had a chance several times. I thought about getting out of it several times. As you well know, you don't make a lot of money in coaching,
Yeah.
and it's pretty tough. But every time I just never did find anything I really wanted to do more, so I just stayed with it. And Coach Steele left his last season, I believe, was 78. I think I'm pretty sure that's right.
Right.
And so the job came open, and I applied for it, and I tell you the truth, I don't think I had much confidence in myself. I don't think I did a good job in the interview. I went in, and at that time, Mr. Sam Yarber was the principal, and I went in and talked to him, told him I wanted the head job, and he said, I don't know, we just talked. He didn't offer me anything. But anyway, I tell you, I never will forget, I was talking to Robert Everett Oakley, who was a friend of mine, about the job, and I just told him, I didn't think I was going to get hired. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And Robert Davis said, I tell you what, if I was you, if I want that job, I'd go in there and tell that man exactly what he wanted to hear. Go in there, just put it down to him. This is the way it is, and just make sure that's what he wants to hear. That's exactly what I did. I went back in there and talked to Mr. Garver.
Yeah.
I told him that I think I just a little bit more excited about it, a little bit more confident about it. Just told him what I would do as coach if he'd hired me. And anyway, I'm thankful for the fact that Mr. Sam Yarber hired me and gave me my first head job. And we had some. I think I had one losing season as head coach. I think that's right. I'm pretty sure
right.
But you learn a lot of those times. You learn a lot about your players and your team and yourself, and so you just have to use that as a winning situation. The first year I was coaching, I inherited it that Coach Steele had kind of built, and we had great players. I think we went 10-1.
Yeah,
lost
10-1.
Lost in overtime at Water Valley, and and I that was my fault. We got ready to go for 2 points, and Johnny Armstrong told me, he said, "Coach, if you'll let me run that ball around the end, I will score." And there's no doubt in my mind. I thought about that a million times. We would have scored if I'd done what Johnny wanted to do. But stupid me, first year I was coaching, I did what I wanted to do, and it didn't work, and we got beat. But I was very fortunate to start out that way. Then we had a pretty bad year, and then we came back and had some other good years. But I enjoyed every year. I enjoyed the year I won 2 or 3 games. Like I say, I think I grew as a coach that year, and so overall, I got to say my experience at Bruce was just a really positive thing for my life and my family. You know, both my sons were born while we lived in Bruce. And, of course, Pat and I started our life together there, and we've been together 51 years. And so, Lord's blessed me. Things have been good, and Bruce was a real big part of that. I got a lot of friends in Bruce I still in contact with from time to time, and just great memories there. You know, I was there a total of 13 years.
Yeah.
And so that's like I say, I got started in my married life, and my family my children born there and went to school there first. And so Bruce is, you know, we just consider that, and it's in Calhoun County, which is where I'm from. So I just consider, you know, we consider Bruce a very important part of our life.
And one of those players that we all remember that played under Coach Allen, here's John Earl Armstrong on what he remembers about Coach Allen and about his time at Bruce.
Played on the Trojan.
And had a really good career. I talked with Coach Allen not long ago, and he talked about you and your brother and how much fun it was to coach. You know, that was his first head coaching job at Bruce, 1979 to 1984 when Coach was here, and he coached you the whole time.
He sure did.
What do you remember about Coach Allen?
Man, Coach Allen, he was, you know, I'm going to tell you what now. He hard-nosed. You got this, you know, he really was a good coach, and really he pushed us, you know, and that was a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, sir. He was on top of things, and he was serious about it. That's what I liked about it, you know, and encouraging, you know.
Y'all had a tough
get
schedule.
On your butt.
Yeah.
Get on your butt. Drag.
Yeah, he talked about that. He talked about practice.
He'll chew you out. Man, I'm telling you, I like that. You know, that's what we need. You know, one thing I like about Coach Allen,
yeah,
you know, he told me, you know, I was bad about leaving my shoes, you know, and he told me, we went to North Panola. He said, John, he said, I ain't getting you no more shoes. And man, I got to North Panola. I said, Coach, guess what? I said, I left my shoes. Good God Almighty. But you know what? He broke what he said. He went on about got me a pair of shoes, and we beat him that night too. Yo, did we beat the fire of North Panola? And but yeah, I appreciate him. He was good. See, what I liked about, you know, the Trojan football back then, it was like everybody was into it. Not only just the players, but our surroundings, our fans, and the people. I mean, the little kids, it was just all over the place, you know.
Yeah.
The spirit of Trojan, the Trojan spirit, just everywhere. And one thing about it is we couldn't wait for the pep rally, you know. Everybody was excited about going to the pep rally, you know, and not only that, but just going to the pep rally, everybody got involved. I mean, it was rocking. It was like that, man, all throughout, you know, we played.
What are some games you remember? I know you talked about North Panola. What are some other games you remember playing in?
Well, we had Calhoun City. I mean, they was driving, you know, and I never forget, you know, my senior year, they had supposed to have been the best top 3 running backs in the state of Mississippi. You know, they had Neil Wilt, Charles Bobo, and then they had Howard Armstrong, you know. And man, I tell you what, they come to our house, they was like top ranked, you know. And so our guys, we were just, hey, down there, just hard-nosed people, you know, and we knew what we was up against. and for us to shut them out, I said, man, they forgot about Little Bruce, what we had. I said, we had a no-name defense, you know.
Yeah.
But everybody would get after that ball, you know. And we shut Calhoun City. We beat them 13-0. I never forget. And that was something that, you know, that they never thought was going to happen, but it happened. Yes, and but we had a lot of, you know, games there that we never thought. But just get a Trojan pride, something about it. You know, it comes from Coach Adams and the coaching staff that pushed us and worked us hard, you know. And so we lost a lot of players, you know, back then too, but we didn't quit.
What do you think about when you look back on your career, and what do you look back on Bruce football? What's it mean to you? What's it mean to you to see former players, even if you graduated from 2022 all the way back to 1962? You remember we're a pretty cool fraternity.
Well, you know, Bruce, it's a lot of great athletes that come out of Bruce. I mean, from 22 to 6, you know, it's a lot of great people, and it's good when you see them. It's good to see them because the fact is that they played at Bruce, and, you know, there's something about that Trojan pride. I don't care. You know, it means something. It sure do. And that's the key to it there, you know, because when you from Bruce and meet people from Bruce that done played at Bruce, you know, my brother and them, Spud Deek, you know, all them guys, I mean, it's awesome. You know, Jim Beckett, you know, they were before me. Terry Spratt, you know, all them guys, my brother, you know, they were. And see, I had a chance to play with my brother, you know, a year, you know, and that was the awesomest thing that ever happened, you know, because, you know, you got the Mark Ferguson, Fred Gunn, Larry Fox. We had a lot of guys that really, that's what made me, because when I was in the 7th grade, they wouldn't let me play Pee Wee. I had to play with my brother and them, Johnny, the 9th grade. And see, that's what really made me, you know, because them guys, I had to go against them guys every day. And shoot, and that's what I thank God. Every time I see them, I think about what they did for me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So did. They better. And not only that, but when you see them guys that before them, how good they were. Woo! You know, it's just a long list of things. And guys after us that came and broke our records, you know, the Roger Armstrong and Tim Armstrong, you know, the Freeland guys. I mean, on and on. You can say about a lot of them, you know, that I'll tell you, it's something about Trojan pride.
Yeah, I don't think everybody remembers, including myself, that you were at Bruce for 13 years. You know, we all remembered you as a head coach, but obviously you serving as an assistant under Coach Steele had that first season, Coach, 10-1, and like I said, struggled a little bit in 1980. But the following years, 8-3, 8-3, 8-2, finished up at 6-4 in 1984, and that's playing some really stiff competition. You talked about a name, and some coaches, when we get on the show, they're a little hesitant about talking about names, but one name that was synonymous with Bruce football back then was Johnny Armstrong. Who are some players, maybe a game or two that you remember during that 4 or 5 year run as head coach? Maybe some specific games that you remember that maybe didn't go your way, maybe went your way, but will always be remembered fondly for you.
Of course, Johnny Armstrong was a great player. His brother, John Earl, was my quarterback one year, and he was a great player also. I think he even wound up playing a little pro ball. But I remember people, we had so many as assistants. But you said head coach, I'm thinking Terry Spratlin, and guard of mine. It was an outstanding player and always played hard. And,
you're not talking about Maddox, are you?
Yes, I am. Brian Maddox.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a player.
Linebacker, is that right?
Well, he was an offensive guard, I think.
I got you.
Well, he may have played some linebacker. I remember he was a guard, and Art Spratlin was an outstanding quarterback for me. He did a really good job for me. Um, we just had, like I said, Dan Cannis. We had so many great players, and I tell you what, we had too at Bruce was just, I don't know if just country boys that were hard working. They were youth and they wanted to win. That's another thing that the community has a lot to do with the attitude the players had. The community in Bruce wants to win, and they kind of pass that down, in the community and at the kitchen table and everywhere else. You're expected to go out there and people supported me really good for the most part, and players, they were very coachable. And because they wanted to win, they wanted to do right, and that's one thing that the kids at Bruce, more than probably any other place I ever been, they show up ready to practice and ready to play, but I remember this too. I think about when I think about Bruce. I remember the first year I coached there in 1972. I remember I was all fired up right out of college. I was ready to go. The first day of practice, me and Tanny Murphy were there, and 4 boys showed up to practice. I thought, oh my goodness. But anyway, it got a lot better after that. But anyway, I hate I can't mention any more of my players. If I could see them, I'd remember. We had a lot of good players. I was very fortunate to have. I remember the rookie boy that played, but those Armstrongs, they were all. But hey, I tell you what, old Poop, you remember? Stanley Evans, my wife just showed up. She could help me with some of these. Stanley Evans, old Pooh, he was a policeman there, I think, Bruce, for a while.
Yes, sir. He was the chief of police and passed away not long ago.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I hate to hear that, but he was a great player, and I really enjoyed coaching him. And I just, like I said,
there's a lot of people, Coach. I mean, I know they come up to you when they see you, and
they do. And I can most of them then, but you're talking. Happened, 40 years ago?
Oh, it's just 45 years ago. Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask you, too. You served as an assistant and working in that junior high program and seeing all the success that Coach Steele had, and then, Coach Murphy.
When I came there in 1972, that was the first year they formed the Highlights Conference. I never played in the Big Ten or whatever it was.
The Little 10, yes.
Little 10, yeah. And so, no, I didn't do it. But anyway,
I got you. Yeah. So learning under Coach Steele and Coach Murphy, what did you learn as an assistant coach? And do you think a lot of the success that Coach Steele and you were having when those junior high players got to high school is because of cohesiveness between the junior high program and the high school program?
Oh, no doubt, yeah. Those two programs have got to work together, and when they don't, and I've been in places where they didn't work together very well, but when they work together, it's very important for several reasons. But, I learned a lot of things, but, one is you just got to get prepared. There's a lot of work you do off the practice field. You got to be prepared when you get there, have a plan, and then have a method to work that plan out. In other words, you want to run a certain type of play. Like when Coach Steele came there, he changed us over to the wishbone, which I didn't know anything about because it was a big offense in college at that time. And we started running, but he had here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it. I mean, here's how we're going to teach them to do it. We had a practice plan that was down every minute what we were going to do. Every drill had a purpose. You weren't just out there, just doing stuff because you saw it in a book or on TV. You had a purpose to do every drill and everything, and I think that's what I really learned a lot from both of them, especially I think Coach Steele. Teaching me the wishbone, and then we started running the veer, and then I wound up I ran the veer in one form or another all the way until about 2000. I never ran it at Ripley. But the other places I coached, in one form or another, I ran the veer offense, the option offense, and probably should have changed a lot more than I did. And I changed defenses several times, and Coach Murphy had his own kind of defense. I don't remember exactly what he called it, but it was something he'd been very successful with. We ran that some. Coach Steele came in and ran a 5-2, which was what everybody was kind of running back in those days. And then the 5-2 had one of the problems with the 5-2 that I found that it's hard to stop the option of the 5-2. That's why they had the veer was developed because everybody's running a 50 defense, so it attacked it. So anyway, then I had the second year I was head coach, or no, maybe the third year I was head coach. I changed my defense completely, and I ran a split forward. I ran that for years. And I didn't change that really until I went to Neshoba Central. And then I started running the 4-3, and that's what I ran the rest of the time. But like I said, just figuring out what you want to do, have a goal, and just working toward that goal.
Yeah, and you talk about figuring things out, and we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about all the success you had following Bruce. And I have to think that a lot of that success came because of the knowledge and everything that you learned at Bruce, both on and off the job. You head over to Water Valley and win a state championship, and quite frankly, Coach, I think an argument can be made one of the best high school football teams in the history of the state of Mississippi, the 1990 state champions. You talked about running that veer. I don't know that anybody ran any better than the Hervey boys. You fast forward a little bit, you had some stops at Ripley and Neshoba Central. I'm sorry, not Ripley. Was it New Albany? Did I make that up?
Yeah, no. Neshoba Central, Ripley. New Albany.
Yes,
and Ripley.
That's what I thought. And had some stops there and had a lot of success there. Just what are some overall thoughts on your career as you kind of look back as a head football coach in our state here?
Well, I tell you the truth, I wish I wasn't like this, but I have I look back on a lot of things that I wish I'd have done this or that. In other words, hindsight for everybody is good. And there were several things that I was pretty bullheaded in that I didn't like to change. I had something going pretty good. I like to stay with it. And I look back, I had some assistant coaches. I was very fortunate, by the way, to have good assistant coaches. And I want to say something about the ones I had at Bruce, by the way. But the assistant coaches sometimes would try to talk me into doing something different, but I really bullheaded and wouldn't do it. And so that's one of the things I look back on. I thought, well, I wish I'd have changed more. But I was very, like I tell you before, I was very fortunate. And I think I was at Bruce at a good time because we had good players. And I never thought I was a coach that could out-coach a lot of people. I think I was a very average coach. When I had good players, I won. And when I didn't have good players, I didn't win. And I was just fortunate everywhere I went. We had pretty good players. And I was able to win a lot more games than I lost. But that's the whole key in football on any level. You got to have the players. And that's the number one thing I think about my coaching career. I always had them, and I had good assistant coaches. I know when I was at Bruce, I had Chester Drury was a great help to me while I was there. And William Dunn was the guy that helped me some. I'm trying to think. Coach Pulliam was there. He was a good coach, and we had a lot of good coaches at Bruce, and I enjoyed working with them. I don't know. Like I said, I just glad I got to do what I did. I just feel blessed the whole time. I tell you what else too. There's a few moves I made I wish I hadn't moved, but everywhere we moved, we always got in a good church and made a lot of good friends, and so we're tickled about that. We can drive around the state and just know people in a lot of little towns, and that's very important to the relationships we have with our churches and our people. And so we've been very fortunate. It's turned out good. The Lord's blessed me with good health, and my wife's got good health, and, we're planning on living at least another 30, 40 years, I guess.
Well, you got the tie that binds a lot of us, Coach. You remember that Bruce football community, and we'll always have that tie that binds. And you look at, Coach, I was watching some old tape as I'm digging through a lot of this. A lot of the folks aren't with us anymore, whether it be players or coaches. But I think what you taught in that classroom, both on and off the field, sticks with folks forever, and you should be commended for that.
Well, I appreciate that. As I said, I really enjoyed the classroom. I hear a lot of coaches don't, but I really enjoyed teaching whatever I was teaching. Mostly at Bruce, I taught history, and I taught a little health. Mostly history. I loved history and I loved teaching. We had a good school there. I enjoyed my time there. I think it's tougher everywhere today to teach school, but back in the day, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my time at Bruce.
Chapter 2, Run Until I Get Tired. Here's Coach Donnie Logan.
We hit it off up there, and then when I came in down there, he said, "Won't you come help me with 7th grade?" And I said, "Sure." And I said, "Let me talk to Vicky about it," and I did, and that's how I got started, helping him with 7th grade.
Did you come in under Coach Yarber as did he want you to be high school only?
No. When I started, he was junior high coach.
Okay. So in '82, that would have been Terry Allen. Was that when Coach Allen was here?
Terry Allen was still the head coach. Yes, Terry Allen and Chester and Sammy Pulliam was doing. I think Sammy was doing high school, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah, I'm almost sure in '82.
And Mark and Coach Harrelson was doing junior high, and Mark just asked me to help him with 7th grade. And that's how I got started. And then when your dad came in '85, the first time, Mark moved up to help him when Terry left.
Yeah.
And then when he did that, then they hired Greg Haynes. And I had only been helping Mark for a couple of years. And when Coach Murphy asked me that I want to junior high, I said, well, get somebody with more experience. And then when Mark took the head job, we moved up. Me and Mark and Greg did all of it. We did junior high, high school, and it was just the three of us.
Yeah. What when you took the job, and I'm sure you're talking about someone with experience and that sort of thing. What do you remember about coming in, and what was a rewarding part of coaching the junior high versus maybe the high school early on in your career?
Well, I was learning as much as the kids were, because, I had coached baseball in summer league before, but I never had coached football, and so I guess the mentor of Mark and your dad, when he came, he was running that, I forgot what you call it, little wing tee offense.
Wing tee, yeah.
Yeah, and I learned it from, and he helped me with that, and then of course, with Mark as a head coach and doing that, then Coach Robbins came in '90, and he allowed me to be the defensive coordinator. So man, that was a big time in my coaching career right there. Then when he came in, and he didn't know me, and we sat down and talked, and he said, I want you to be the defensive coordinator and the junior high head coach. So that's how that got started.
Yeah, that was right. That was 8 years. You serving as for a lot of us, the face of our junior high program. Yeah. And Coach, we had a lot of success, especially in the latter part of you serving as a coach. What are some things you remember in those 8 years as you were working with the junior high?
Just the kids, and of course, Brad had your group that was special, and other groups that were special as well. But they loved it, and whatever we as coaches asked them to do, they did it. It was just fun, Brad. And it made it fun, and and of course I guess winning helped, but it was just fun.
Well, how important is it? And you look back on specifically when you were feeding into that program, specifically when Coach Yarber was there, when my dad was the coach, and eventually Coach Robbins. How important was it? And of course, now you served on the high school staff, but
right.
Specifically now, how important is it to mold those kids and get them ready for an offense? We see programs like South Panola, they fed into that program with Pope Junior High and then kind of going forward. Obviously, we ran the same offenses. I mean, I think that was a large part of why we were so successful in high school.
Well, what I always did was I used the same terminology and ran the same offense the high school was running. Now, it may not look like it because we didn't get as complex as the high school offense and defense both. We did both of them. We ran had the same terminology from the time the kids were in the 7th grade. When they got to high school, the terminology didn't change, of course, unless the coach changed, and that did happen a time or two. But for the most part, that was a big part of our success. I started with the 7th graders, and then of course the 8th and 9th graders played together, And we ran the same offense and same defense, the same kickoff team, the same punt returns as a high school, all the way through in junior high.
And that 1990 season, obviously, when Coach Robbins was here, he kind of changed a lot of things. We learned different blocking techniques, as you remember, running the train tracks and that sort of thing, and had a lot of success on the field. And then when you moved to high school, I mean, serving from 82 until 1990 in the junior high program, then 1990 to 1999 before you headed off to Pontotoc, some of that 9-year stretch, Coach, was possibly the most, winningest stretch in the history of the Bruce program.
It could have been. I've never really gone back and looked at, the record, because that wasn't important. What was important was the kids, know, and having fun and trying to get them out to high school. Keep them interested and get them to the high school, because that's when it started counting for real.
There are a lot of us that have went on, and then a lot of people are listening to this, Coach, that you touched that are grandfathers now, and
that tells how I am.
Well, I guess I kind of did, but I think more importantly, you talk about being, good people, and I see people all the time, regardless of what industry you're in or whatever jobs people are doing. I think what we learned all the way back into 7th grade, and that first day when they came into the classroom, said, you want to play football. And I think learning on the field, the discipline part of this, the way to treat people, the way to honor your elders, yes or no, sir. A lot of folks, me included, we learned that on the football field.
Yeah, well, that's what I tried to tell you, and we go back and you can't help but think of Coach Pope, and some of his sayings. Of course, we all had them, and anything worth working for, anything worth having is worth working for, you know. And if you're not going to do that, then why be out here? I always tried to tell the kids that it was a privilege for them to be out there. They didn't have to be. It was a privilege, and they earned that privilege by doing what they were supposed to do at school, and taking care of business up there, so we could go out there and do that and have fun.
I'm specifically reminded that 1990 team, Coach, when you were the defensive coordinator, and then you fast forward to the 92 team that goes to play Philadelphia, loses in the state championship, and then the following year continues to win, and then there's some non-playoff years in there. But even one year, I think we went 8-3 and didn't make the playoffs. What are some games you remember, maybe junior high, maybe high school, that kind of stand out to you over the years that maybe didn't win them, maybe didn't lose them, but what are some things you kind of remember?
Probably the most fun game I was ever a part of was when we played Greenville St. Joe.
Yeah,
down there, Benji and Malcolm and that group. And I know that you start naming names and people are going to get upset, but
we do the best we can. I know it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, it has. But that was probably the most fun game I've ever been involved in. And of course we won it, and I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 overtimes. It was wild and crazy. But that one sticks out. Of course, the state championship, in '96. You can't leave that out.
Right.
And then the Calhoun City game the year before, when they beat us 6-0.
Right.
I remember that just like it was yesterday. And I remember the play that turned the game around. We had to redo it, and it changed. We, and that, I guess that's, of course, they had a good team.
They did.
City did. And we had some battles over the years, and we won some, and they won some.
Yeah, they got us that night. They got us on an important one, but, we got them the couple weeks before, and everybody said we'd meet them again in the championship, and we did. I think, Coach, more or less, more than anything, Phil Ferguson, obviously, was our head coach back then. You were our defensive coordinator, and we had a really good team. And I think, Coach, a lot of folks, as I've gotten older, obviously when it happened and even years after, it was hard to stomach that. But I think more than anything, we learned a lot that night. We learned from adversity. Even to this day, I talk about that game, and, I became friends with a lot of folks on the other side down the road. And there was a lot of appreciation, a lot of respect between both those teams. Although we didn't like each other a whole lot, we had a whole lot of respect for each other.
But, I remember them the one year, when I got involved in baseball later on during some of this time. And one year they won the state championship, and then at a baseball game they were showing off their rings and stuff to them. And then when those guys won it '96. Well, they did the same thing the next year. They when we played them after the game, they
Yes, sir.
but just like you said, that was the respect thing, but a little ribbon and the rivalry too. So.
Going back, Coach, we've lost some folks along the way. You talked about Coach Pope passing away was a big part of this program. We've lost some players along the way. And oddly enough, Coach, when we go to these visitations and we go to these funerals, or even when we see folks, we always kind of revert back to Bruce football. And that's kind of one thing that kind of draws us all together. And I'll be honest, I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, it is. And I tell you, Brad, the one thing that I guess that still – we 30, 40 years removed from part of this, what we're talking about. Yeah. When I see stuff, some of the former players, post something on Facebook that's really meaningful, or if I see them out, say, somewhere and, hey, Coach, you remember so-and-so, and of course I do, and that's the best part of it. I'm going to have to hush, or I'm going to get where I can't talk there.
Yeah, it means a lot to us. And,
it does.
You were a vibrant part of that successful run, and vibrant part of my career. And today I'd just like to say thank you. Chapter 3, Follow the Train Tracks. Here's head coach Dennis Robbins. Only a short amount of time, Coach, but I think if you look back on it, your percentage was really good. 9-4, 11-3, 2 big playoff runs. A lot of success under your regime for sure.
I was in Texas. I've been there for 4 years.
Yeah.
I was a defensive coordinator first 2, then I became head coach the next 2. And we wanted to get back home. So my wife's folks had bought some land in Ecru, and, they were going to give us like 5 acres or something. So we were wanting to get back and get close to family.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of started looking for jobs in the area that were close enough to, drive to, whatever. And, the Bruce job, I saw it. We were living in Texas, and every time we would come home, we would go through Bruce,
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about Bruce, nothing. And so I contacted Mr. Freeman, who was the principal at the time, interviewed, got the job.
Yeah.
Didn't know anybody in Bruce, didn't know a soul in Bruce, didn't know anything about Bruce. And we moved in a house that we'd never seen before. So we rented a house, never seen it before. Didn't even know where it was. When we got there, somebody had to come show us where it was.
Mm-hmm.
One of the Coopers, I can't remember which one. But when we came to Bruce, we had everything we owned in a U-Haul. I had, I was a lot younger then, had 2 small kids. Well, really, 3 small kids.
Right.
Three small kids. And so the funny thing is, when we come to Bruce, it's at night. It may be, 10 o'clock at night or something. I don't remember. But we get on the square. We're in the U-Haul. We got everything we own in that thing. And it's hard to get on the square. And we said, dang, what's going on? There's so much traffic. What's going on at 10 o'clock at night? And we noticed the same cars coming around. It's like, what are they doing? But anyway, that was weird for us. That was our first deal. But, we got there, and, Donnie was there as an assistant coach already. And then I hired Mike Ray and Phil Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a great staff. They worked hard, and we worked well together. And, the kids were, it was different then. I don't know. The kids loved playing football, They just loved playing football. and you didn't have to worry about coddling them or being easy on them or anything like that, because, you know, they wanted to play. And they were very physical. You know, they were a physical bunch. And we had some athletes.
Yeah.
So I think lots of times it's just all about timing. And I think it was, just great timing.
Fascinating
for me,
about
anyway.
that. And, Coach, it's fascinating to me, the coaching staff. Of course, Donnie would serve at Bruges for a number of years. He would go with you to Pontotoc, and then, had a lot of success. Coach Ray would eventually go to Calhoun City, have a ton of success there. Phil would stay at Bruce, eventually become the head coach down the road, and win a state championship. They all cite in the conversations I've had with them about how much they learned from you. What was some things you learned in Texas that maybe you brought to Bruce and implemented either into the offense or defense, or just the morale of the players?
Well, I think when I went to Texas, I was under a coach named Julian Bush. Julian was an old-time Texas coach and had been coaching in Texas. He had no children, and he just studied the game. I mean, he was doing things in the game then that are happening now, you know. He was already zone blocking. He was already playing the kind of defense that they play now.
Yeah.
And so I learned a whole lot from him. I learned, the defense that we ran came from him. It's the same defense we ran in Texas. A lot of the things we did offensively, well, we brought with us also. When I was in Texas, the first 2 years I was the DC, so he taught me the defense. The second 2 years I was head coach, so I ran the offense. But, basically the whole system. So,
but it was completely different than when Coach Yarber was there the year before in '89, when they essentially, Coach ran the wishbone, and you didn't do anything of the sort. You implemented what a lot of folks at Florida now, or at that point, would call the run and shoot. And if you're throwing it 2 or 3 times a game, I mean, it was the run and shoot at Bruce. What did you see in some of those athletes when you first met them back in 1990? Number one, could they run your offense, and what you were going to have to do to implement that offense? Because eventually, like you said, we'd have a lot of success. 7-2 in your 2 years in the division, and that is a really good record. And at that point, we were playing a very tough division.
Again, it was just like I was just like really surprised and happy with the talent that we had there. I mean, we had great players. And they loved playing football, and you could, it was like at that time it was, it was no babying kids. You didn't baby them. They would do it because they wanted to play. And I just saw that. I just saw kids that loved playing football. A community. I mean, the big thing was community. So much support from community, and it was great. The people there were great to my family, and I always said the only thing I did wrong with Bruce was leave too early.
Yeah.
but it was a great 2 years. It was and I enjoyed it, and I couldn't say enough about it other than you look back on your coaching career and moves that you made, and maybe I left too soon, maybe I left for the wrong reasons, stuff like that. But,
any particular game stand out over your career?
Well, yeah, there's two that I can really think of offhand, and one of them we were playing at St. Joe in the Delta.
Yeah.
It was a playoff game. It was a heck of a game. They threw the ball and we ran the ball. They probably threw for 500 yards and we probably ran for 500 yards.
Mm-hmm.
It went into overtime, and I remember Tim Armstrong making a play at the end to kind of seal the game, and it was like a 50-something to 50-something game. I mean, it was like overtime and just crazy. I remember that one. Another Tim Armstrong deal. I remember we're playing for North Half at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma is undefeated, and we may have lost 2 or 3, I don't know, but anyway, we're playing at Oklahoma for North Half. It's Thanksgiving week. Had a player not show up for practice all week. Of course, it was Tim Armstrong, who was everything. He did everything. Started out best defensive player, best offensive player, kicked off, did everything. And so he didn't show up all week. And he comes up there Friday ready to go to the game. I said, you're not playing. You didn't practice all week. You're not playing. And so, we went to Oklahoma with kind of with, underdog. We were underdogs already, and that made it really big time underdogs. And, a lot of people wasn't happy with me for doing that. And but anyway, we went on to beat Oklahoma that night. Kids stepped up and made plays and did a great job. And that was a big win for us. I guess really it made it bigger, the circumstances. So the next week we go to state and play, and Tim Armstrong makes every practice. So he did not miss another practice.
They played a really good game too, Coach. That was I think we played did we play at Mississippi College for that championship?
We did. We played the Carters.
Taylorsville.
I don't remember a lot about. Yeah, I don't remember a lot about that game other than getting beat.
Yeah, they were really good, and they got the best of us that night. But Coach, I had a conversation with Tim years later, and he talked about how he learned so much from that decision you made, and I'm sure that Donnie Logan specifically talked about that. Along with, I asked him about one game, Coach. You'll be tickled to know that he talked about the St. Joe game as well. Not only the fans, but it appears the coaches enjoyed that as well. But anytime you can win a game like that, it was absolutely wild. And right. But I talked to Tim, and he was so appreciative of you as a coach and instilling discipline in him. Of course, Tim would go on and have a really good career at Northwest Community College and be a really good player in the JUCO level, and he was a great high school player as well. Coach, one game I'll ask you to reflect upon is the Amory game when we had Amory at Bruce. And Amory had a very good team that year, and Bobby Hall was across the way, and Bruce went toe-to-toe with Amory, and I thought that was a big game for Bruce.
It was. At that time, that first year, man, it was tough. We were in were we in 3A maybe?
We were 3A, yes.
And it seemed like we played Water Valley, and they were freaking loaded. Mm-hmm. That's when, they went undefeated and won the state championship and probably could have beat any.
They could have beaten any classification that year. Yes, sir.
Right. And, to get into Amory, and, they had a great team, but our kids, the thing about our kids is, they competed. It didn't matter who you were playing. They didn't care.
Yeah.
They didn't care who you were. They felt like they should win, and that was again part of their, I don't know, one reason that made us successful. Didn't matter who you played.
Yeah, I remember looking back. Even I was in junior high at that point, but even your techniques were different. The blocking techniques, running the train track, as you'll remember. So many things that we learned that had never been implemented before. And I think that's what catapulted Bruce football. There was a bit of a resurgence when you came in 1990, because, Coach, after that, from 1990 all the way to 2016, we had a nice run. They had a state championship in there. We had a number of North Half appearances. And I think you are a lot to thank for that, because Bruce was in a little bit of a lull after Terry Allen left because he had won 10 games. You were the first person since Terry Allen in 1979 to win 10-plus games, and you did so when we went 11-3 in your last year in 91.
I remember going to the Delta and playing. I don't know who we were playing. But again, I don't think we're supposed to beat them. But we go to the Delta and play them, and we wasn't real big, and they were kind of laughing at us when we got off the bus and said, "Y'all brought y'all's junior high."
Yeah.
But after the game, they weren't laughing, so that was neat. Stuff like that. I mean, it's just like, and you remember the real good ones. I guess you remember the real bad ones too, because I remember going to U4, and we're undefeated, and before us defeated. They hadn't won a game. But we go down there, and, I mean, it's just one of them nights where we can't do anything right, and they do everything right. And so, you know, of course, you know how it is after you win some games and then you're playing somebody that's not very good. You feel like you should just show up and win because you're there. But U4 had a really good game, and we had a really bad game, and they beat us. And, you know, we that was a wake-up call for us, and after that we went on and did what we were supposed to do. So, you know, and that happens. But like I said, you remember the real good, you remember the real bad. So
when you took the job at Bruce, you had a lot of success at Bruce, and you're remembered very fondly by all of us that had the privilege of playing under you. So when you look back on your career at Bruce, it was your first head coaching job, right, in Mississippi?
No, I'd been a head coach at South Haven.
Okay.
I was like, that was my first head coaching job. I'd got out of college. I was assistant coach for about 3 years, and then I was head coach there. And I kind of learned through getting thrown in the fire there. I was not ready to be a head coach, but the principal made me a head coach because I could make the kids act right, basically. And but we did have some success at South Haven. We played for North Half 1 year. And then, you know, I was working 2 or 3 jobs. I was head coach, working at truck lines, trying to make ends meet. And I was going to get out of coaching. That's when FedEx was just starting up. And supposedly I thought I had a job at FedEx. So I had resigned from my job at South Haven after football season. And my wife didn't have a job. She was working part-time. We just bought a brand new house, and we had 1 newborn. And so I'm waiting for FedEx to send me the mail saying I'm going to start work whenever. But for some odd reason, I never figured it out. I got a letter from them, but it wasn't you got a job. It's a letter that you don't have a job.
Yeah.
So now then, I'm unemployed, got a new house, a new baby, and no job. So I decided then, I said, well, if I'm going to coach, I'm going to go somewhere where I can make a living coaching. And so I just started looking for job openings in Texas. That's before the internet and all this stuff. So I just got a mail letter. And if I saw one in a place where I thought I might want to go, I would try it. But, you know, I didn't really try but one, and got that job in Orangefield, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And you go back about the offense we ran. We had a quarterback there. His name was Jeff Granger. He signed with A&M as a quarterback and a pitcher, left-handed pitcher.
Right.
He was a great athlete, a great kid, and he wound up playing quarterback at A&M and being their number 1 pitcher. Matter of fact, in the Major League draft, he was picked in the first round, like 5th or 6th pick in the first round. And anyway, that's where we got the run and shoot stuff. We ran it with him because he could throw the football and run it. So
that's I remember him specifically at A&M. He was a great player, but obviously you talked about earlier coming back home, and you take the Bruce job, leave for Bruce. Coach, correct me if I'm wrong, South Pontotoc was your next stop?
Right, it was.
And, you've been in a lot of places since then now, enjoying yourself, enjoying your family. Looking back over your career, what did you learn on that Bruce job for 2 years that you were able to implement down the road in your other positions as coach?
It's just, I don't know. I learned don't leave the job for the wrong reasons, basically. I left. I left because it was closer to my house, and I wasn't driving 45 minutes a day back and forth. It was a little more money, which at the time, meant a lot to me because you weren't making much anyway, and you know how it is because you grew up as a teacher's son, and that was attractive to me, but. again, I think, it was so good at Bruce because the community was so good. Everybody there loved football. The people supported you. They loved football. We came there. They built a weight room, and we really got involved in weights and lifting and got more serious about that. And they were just all in, and the coaches I had was a great staff. It was just like a perfect storm, I guess you could say. It was like, thank you, Lord, for putting me here. I had no idea. I had no anything about Bruce, not anything. And I think the first day we're there, Nancy Gray and Benji's mom, they come get our kids and take care of them for us so we can, do things we need to get done.
Yeah.
It was just awesome. I mean, just great players and guys that, I guess as you get older coaching and you see that, wins and losses is good, but then you see how these young men turn out to be, good fathers and good people in the community and leaders of the church and stuff like that. And that means a lot more than wins and losses. As I look back on it, as you look back on it, you wish maybe you could do more to help kids or, mentor them more, or, than rush and trying to get ready to play. A good example of that is, I told you I coached at South Haven.
Right.
I started at South Haven in 79. I think I was there at about 83 or 84. I can't remember. But the other day, out of the blue, a dude called me that played for me at South Haven like 40 years ago. And he had gotten in trouble, and he was in prison for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. And he called me and thanked me for what I'd done for him, things that I'd done for him that, I didn't remember him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, stuff like that means a lot. Because, just like those kids, there's kids probably that don't think highly of you for whatever reason, but, you can't coach and worry about that. You just do the best you can. And, I always said to myself, I'm going to treat each kid like he's my son, and that doesn't mean I'm not going to be rough on him, because I was rough on my son, but it means I'm going to treat them fair.
Right.
And love them. But, again, it was throughout my coaching career, I put a star or asterisk by that one because it was good, everything about it was good, and that was good feeling that I knew it was going to be in good hands and taken care of. And so, that was kind of a thought too.
Right.
Because I really, really always had a lot of respect for your dad and your mom. So.
Well, it could not have been left in better shape, because obviously, Coach, the following year we would go 12-2, 6-0 in the division, and play for a state championship against Philadelphia. So, with a lot of the players that you had molded, so the program is in great shape, and a lot of that was because of the way that you ran the program.
One guy can't do it by himself. It really starts at the top with the principal and the community, and then the coaches that we had were great coaches, and there were a lot of players. I could go on and on with these players,
Yeah.
But so many. But it was a great 2 years. It was and I enjoyed it. And I couldn't say enough about it.
Chapter 4, The Crappie Are Biting. Here's head coach Phil Ferguson. And kind of going back to it, Dennis Robbins And, Dennis comes in from Texas, doesn't know a lot about Bruce. He even talks about he doesn't know a lot about Bruce. But he hires two young guys, you and Mike Ray. Do you remember that phone call?
Well, actually, I made that phone call to him. I called him, and somebody had said he was looking for some assistant coaches. Actually, his brother-in-law, Danny Henderson, who's now deceased, had told his family is from where I'm from. And anyway, I called Dennis or called Mr. Freeman or somebody, and I went and I drove up my car, and he's working on the football field. He walked over, and we talked about, 20 or 30 minutes out in the sun, and he said, I'll get back in touch with you. And he called me a day or so later and said I had a job, and I think I left there with the feeling, well, I think, with pretty much the conversation led to believe that I'd get a job at Bruce. So, but I do remember that like it was yesterday.
That was a really talented staff. You would go on, obviously, to win a state championship as a head coach, going to Tupelo, and you've had a lot of stops along the way. Mike Ray, of course, would go on to win a lot at Calhoun City. And that was an interesting dynamic. Obviously, Mike from Calhoun City comes to Bruce, takes the job for a couple of years, goes back to Calhoun City and would eventually retire there. How was that working with Mike, and how was that relationship over the years? Of course, you go toe-to-toe on Friday nights for – gosh, Coach, for 5 or 6 years, it was something else. Bruce in Calhoun City.
It was a lot of fun, and Mike and I are still good friends. I talked to him in the spring when crappie start biting. We try to see where each other are catching fish. But 2 Friday nights a year, our communities. You hate to say enemies, but now they certainly there was a lot of intensity right there. Mike and I never, we shook hands. We were friends. His wife gave him a big hug when they beat us, and mine gave me a big hug when we beat them, and we were still friends. I remember one of those, I don't know, and I really think it was the last regular season ball game. Somewhere in there the week before, Mike and I talked about swapping films, and somebody said the crappie's biting a Grenada. He and I loaded up that Saturday morning when we exchanged films, and we went to Grenada Lake. We fished and talked about football and talked about anything but next Friday night. And I remember one of our players on both teams found out about it. They were mad at both of us, on both sides, because we hung out with each other before we played. But, he and I both were first-year coaches. Dennis, tons of knowledge and gave us some responsibility and taught us a lot about football, a lot about kids, and, right time for, good Lord took care of me and put me at Bruce at that time. But it was a lot of good times right there.
Probably, at least from the numbers standpoint, going back to 1991 in Dennis's second year, obviously 11 wins, 12 wins the following year under my dad, under 92, losing in the state championship. And then, of course, the 95 year, 12-1. Yep, that loss to Calhoun City. And then 96, of course, you go on to win a state championship. And so much talent, so much winning, so much community support. What did you learn, Coach? It's been a couple years since then. You obviously would go on to a lot larger places, but what did you learn under that? It seems like forever, but it was only 5 years as a head coach.
I 2 years with Dennis and 3 with Darryl. Your dad. Dennis was such a tactician about the game itself. Darryl just, relationships with kids and people, and lots of things. I absorbed it. I didn't know I was learning anything then, but you absorb it and, still say some of the same things. And last night I went to a JV football game, and one of the coaches called me after we was talking, and he said, "What do you think?" And I got talking about the counter tray and waggle off. Here's what we could do. Yeah. I still, but I go back to that. That was my roots, and it was a great time, great people, great. But you said it best: the support in the community, the expectations. Yes, to win, but also for their kids to go to school every day, to take care of their business, to go to that weight room, to work hard, to be respectful to the coaches, and be sold out to their team. And that made it. That's what made it special. Yes, and we had some kids that were a little bigger and a little faster, but they were tough. I just remember the toughness of those guys that stood out so much.
I remember one thing, Coach. I don't know if you remember this. You were the 7th grade coach, and it was 1992. And it was a year to where we were loaded in 7th grade. Obviously, we would have players like Armiga Spearman that would go on to play for Ole Miss and make it to the NFL. We had Casey Clark, who was a great linebacker. We had Jason Jenkins. The list goes on.
Had a redheaded tight end.
A redheaded tight end that was not the greatest in the world, but loved the game. I remember we were in 7th grade, and if you'll remember, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Casey and I talk about this often, and you told me and Casey to lead a chant during practice. And the 9th grade, we're practicing on top of the hill. We were on the bottom of the hill. We were in the lowly high grass. Scrimmage the 9th grade, and we tied into it, and we had a really good practice. And I think that's how we got better. And we all played off each other, and we all learned a lot. And, Coach, I think, I'd be interested to know that was or I guess it was your first job out of Clark College, was it not?
Well, out of Ole Miss, yeah.
Yeah, out of Ole Miss.
Out of Ole Miss, yeah.
And we all learned a lot.
Well, it was a lot of fun, and I do remember that. And I just wanted you guys to feel like nobody could conquer that mountain, and it was good times, special times.
We left it on the field, and I'm not sure we want some of the 9th grade, and 7th grade back then it wasn't any of the 7th and 9th grade. But looking back over that, Coach, your final 2 years. By the way, your last year was 1999. Go undefeated in the division, 5-0, 11-3. It was a heck of a year. What kind of went into your thought process of moving away from Bruce and kind of taking the other job?
I'd had another offer earlier in the year, and Sarah and I went and looked, and it just wasn't the right time, and we didn't think. And the Tupelo job, certainly one of the elite schools in the state of Mississippi, a big school, and it was an opportunity, the opportunity to go there and be a part of that school and work under Booty Sloan, who's the AD, and Matt Curley, the principal. Just, the good Lord lines things up for you, and we mess it up sometimes, and he steers it back where he wants us to be. But just a great opportunity for me and my family, and again, Bruce was great to me. It was hard to leave there, and I remember that summer we didn't sell our house, and we had a 10 or 12 month old. Claire was at that time, and Sarah was we were expecting again, and I was driving to the weight room. I remember driving back in the afternoons thinking, man, those folks at Bruce are good to me, but new and change is tough for everybody, but that's part of growing up, and that's the world. And I've been blessed everywhere I've ever worked. Every job has been a super good job, and met some great people and had great influence on me.
We were talking before we went on here, and obviously now you're at Oak Hill, and from judging by everybody I've talked to, you wear a lot of hats, but you don't blow a whistle anymore. You kind of intimated to that a little bit ago. You kind of miss the whistle a little bit, calling that timeout, running the ball, throwing the ball, that sort of thing.
I do. I miss a lot of that. The thing as a coach, you build relationships in that field house, on the practice field, and on Friday nights. You can't. You don't get that same. When I call a kid to my office as principal at Oak Hill, it's not the same kind of conversation I have frequently as a coach. But also, this morning, kid that's new to Oak Hill and not sure about something, and I called him in, and we had a talk, and we talked about football. We talked about what he can bring to our program, and he wasn't getting as much play, and I'm still coaching. I just do it a little differently than I used to do.
There's been a couple of renaissance periods in Bruce football, moments we all look back on and talk about some good times. I mean, there's some under Coach Steele. Obviously, there were some under my dad. Terry Allen had some good years. Dennis had some. But the 2-year run in 95 and 96 is what kind of everybody remembers. I mean, Coach, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 25 and 3 over 2 years. 10-2 in the division. That was a heck of a run. What kind of stands out, and kind of reversing back to what we talked about a moment ago, those 7th grade classes, 8th grade classes, when did the light switch kind of go off with you at the junior high period when you thought, I think this group may be pretty good, talking about the 95 and the 96 team?
Brad, I do remember coaching you guys as 7th graders, and I can remember saying, guys, if you do these things between now and the time, you got a chance to win a state championship. A lot of things have to go into that. I mean, we were athletic, but also, it's not just athletes now. It's a team thing, and it's commitment, and being able to get knocked down and get back up and start over and try again. That was the most impressive thing about those guys was. They pouted when they got beat. They were mad when they got beat. They took it personal, but they were willing to go back to work and not quit. And man, that's just like the real world. I think the thing when I think about that era, I can remember 95. We're 12-0 and playing County City for the North half and getting beat. When I got home that night, just me by myself. The feeling I had was, man, I've been a failure. We were 12-0, and we're supposed to be getting on the bus next Saturday going to Jackson to play Taters for a state championship. We're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. I between then and the next spring, I talked to I talked to coaches, and I thought about what could separate us, and I listened to Bobby Hall and gone to some clinics, and the commitment to run the beer, to make the read option and just read it out all the way through, and we went to Ackerman that spring and played in the spring jamboree, and we ran about the first 12 or 14 plays. We scored about every other play, and I said, we got a chance, this could be okay. And that summer, kids worked, and we were healthy. Freddie Bullard was our quarterback. Andre was a fullback.
Right.
Marcus Thomas tailback. I could name the whole bunch if you want me to, but I won't. But we started out, we beat Winona in overtime, and then we play Winona. I mean, not Winona, but Water Valley beat us in there. We were up at halftime, right before half, and I said, I'm gonna get fancy and I'm gonna throw the wheel right. We're gonna really hammer old chick, and same guy that caught those punts and returning for touchdowns against us, intercepted ball, ran it all the way back, and we went from being up to went down, and we lost that ball game, and then. And later on in the year, Oklahoma beat us about the 8th or 9th ball game. And, we actually had to beat Kansas City, 10 or 12 points to make the playoffs. It was a three-way gig, and us or Kansas City and Oklahoma all were in that mix. And I think we beat Kansas City pretty good that 12th ball game, or that last regular season game. But we talked about special teams and turnovers and defense, but from about that 10th game through that last ball, that 15th ball game, we didn't have a turnover. We didn't turn the ball over a single time, and we're fortunate enough to win a state championship against a really good Ackerman squad that the next year that wound up winning it. But I can tell you lots of wins. I can tell you about every loss.
Yeah.
But it was a good time, but the following year was a great time. After we won a state championship, we started like 1-4, and everybody said, well, they lost to Rabbit's Foot, and we wound up playing in the North Half Championship that year. And the next year, I think Louisville beat us, had that really good running back early in the playoffs, and that's another one of those years I went to bed mad after the last ball game. And
yeah, that would have been 98. We finished 9-3, 4-1 in the division.
Yeah, but I can. You talk football about that era, and I can tell you every loss and several wins, but I can tell you about all those losses.
Coach, it's funny you say that. I had a conversation just the other day, and they're like, Brad, why are you always talking about the losses? Why are the losses the ones you remember? Because obviously it's the loss, and it's the one that you're hard to get over. Nobody talks about the Boonville win in '95 in the I guess it would have been the second or third round of the playoffs. We went over to Boonville, played a really good team, and beat. I think we beat them pretty good, 24-6 or something. So, we don't talk about the Calhoun City win we had in the regular season. We only talk about that north half loss, and I kind of understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and yes, that Boonville, I can tell you about that Boonville win. They were 12 or 13-0, and we were, I'm a first-year head coach.
Right.
Jim Drury has 45 years and more state championships than he has fingers, and I can remember one of those newspaper guys saying, "Coach, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, let's just hope it doesn't come back down to my experience in Coach Drury's. I hope but I can remember Mika Spearman picking the pass off, running it back, and I probably could call several plays we ran in that ball game, and when we won it. And then the next year we played Boonville again, second round of the playoffs at Bruce, and we ran a little swing pass out there to Marcus, and he caught it for a touchdown, and that was a close ball game. All of those, I can tell you about those. But the losses sting. Every loss on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 10. Every win isn't. There's very few that are 10s. State championships probably 9.5 or 10, but all those losses on a scale of 1 to 10 are 10s.
It's amazing we can go back and remember so much of this, and Coach, as time passes. So does life. I mean, life happens, and so many players, so many coaches are no longer with us. And, unfortunately, we've all run across each other at the funeral homes. And, with life happening, we're losing Rudy Pope. Obviously, we lost Coach Steele during COVID. We've lost Coach Mark Yarber. And then not to mention we've lost a number of really good players through the years. When you look back, and I know you look back fondly on your time at Bruce, what are some things that make you smile? I mean, you obviously touched a lot of people, and the discipline aspect. I know I take it every day of my life. I am who I am because of Bruce football, and you, Donnie, my dad, I think Dennis are a large part of that. What are some things that kind of make you smile when you start reflecting?
Man, just those relationships. There's so many. So many people influenced me, and I hope that I was a good influence on our young people there. But just the adults I was around that lifetime friendships. Dr. Longus and I talk all the time. We still load up and go to a ball game together, and he and I, moved to Bruce about the same time, and we were two young single guys, just buddies. But also, my wife's from Bruce. I look back, I can't say anything but positive things about my time at Bruce High School, and whether it's Ted Kemp taking me grappling, or Randall Sutherland taking me on trips with him. Just so many people that are buddies, are friends, and lifetime acquaintances. I still, they treated me like I was part of them, and I still look at that as part of my home.
Chapter 5, the most fun I ever had. Here's head coach Mark Grubbs.
It was fun. There ain't no doubt about it. It was the best time I've ever had in my career, to be quite honest. And I really wish that it hadn't gotten cut short. The administration opportunity and the medical issues at the time too, all kind of played into it. But I really wish it would have lasted longer.
Yeah, that 2003 season, Coach. Your first season, 4-6, kind of getting your feet under you. The next year in 2003, 10-2, playoff run. 2004, 11-2 in a playoff run. What are some things that kind of stand out those 2 years? Because those are two of the most successful seasons, quite frankly, Coach, in Bruce history.
before I came to Bruce, I was at North Pontotoc, and we had some common opponents. And I remember seeing some film and thinking, holy smokes, they got some players down there. I knew they did, when I coached back in Water Valley back early in the 90s. So, I mean, I've always been aware of Bruce, but I always thought that was a place that I wanted to be and wanted to coach. And with Terry and Keith Steele, having coached there, it was, just kind of had a little insight into what it was like being there, and I always thought that'd be a great place to be. With that being said, when I came there, it was obvious we had players that didn't mind practicing, and that was the main thing. That's what I remember most is how hard the kids would practice, and I knew we had a chance at that point. We just kind of had to get it turned around and get their head up a little bit. Their head was down just a little bit, and so it was always there. And I can vividly remember during that first 4 and 6 season, our kids getting better and better throughout the year. And when we went down and beat East Webster on their homecoming, that kind of was the game that sparked everything that got us going for those next 2 years.
Every coach that we've talked to about Bruce football, they talk about their assistant coaches. You had a heck of a staff, Coach, and I know they were a vibrant part of how successful you were as a head coach.
Oh, no question. I mean, I inherited probably the best staff you could, without having to go in and hire anybody. I had Richard Russo and Alan Clark and Brian Maddox at the time, and then we were able to add Clarence Harmon, after that. And, it was just every piece you needed. And more than anything else, everybody was willing to work, and everybody was passionate about it, and they wanted to win. And, it made it easy on me. That's for sure.
Talking about coming into the job, and before you took it, you were at an incredible program at Water Valley under head coach Terry Allen. I know you learned a ton there. You guys won a lot of games. What did you learn as an assistant coach that you maybe put forward as a head coach? Because you were the guy calling the timeouts. So what did you learn as a young guy?
I had a great opportunity as a student coach at Louisville before I even went to Water Valley, and Bobby Hall was there. And on that staff with Bobby Hall, Marcus Bulls, Pat Bird, MC Taylor, MC Miller,
good grief,
and Buddy Duke. I mean, it was kind of an all-star coaching staff. You didn't know it at the time, but it became that. And so it started there, and then, of course, moving on with Terry and coaching with Gary Gurry and Steve Fowler and, Murray Dixon over in Water Valley. They were great mentor people. But the biggest thing was how to treat kids. And that came a lot from Terry Allen. He was very fair with the kids. He worked their tail off. And, those were the things that I noticed about he and Bobby both. It was a lot more about treatment of kids and, how to get the most out of them. The X's and O's, you can do a lot of different things and it all will work. You can get them kids to buy into it and play hard and practice hard. And that's what they taught me and how important practice was. And those games were won on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and there wasn't no motivational speech in the world that was going to change what was going to happen depending on what happened on those first 3 days.
I like what you said earlier, Coach. Your first year, we talked about that a moment ago, 4 and 6, but you immediately talked about the big win at the end of the year as the players were getting better. How rewarding was that for you the following year to win 10 games and then the year after that winning 11 games? What are some things that kind of jump out at you in those 2 years to how some of the players had kind of transitioned from they had the talent, they just needed to learn how to win?
Well, it was all about practice. I mean, that was where it was. They had to learn how to practice. And I'm not saying they didn't know how before I got there, because Rudy Pope was a great football coach, and those guys that were already there, they knew how to do it their way, and it was working, to a large extent for them there. So I don't want to disparage what they did, but we just were able to come in and practice a little differently, And for me, that was the biggest deal. And now it wasn't anything I made up. It was everything I learned from Bobby Hall and Terry Allen and Keith Steele and that bunch. I just tried to put those things together and make it my own. But we learned how to practice. That was number one. And once we started doing that and realizing that, practice had to be harder than the games so we could enjoy playing the game, I think that made a significant turnaround for us. And we had to win a big game against somebody we weren't supposed to beat. And that night at East Webster in their homecoming, we beat them 31-0. I'll never forget it. And our kids started to believe at that point, hey, we're pretty doggone good. And, the next year when we won 10 games, I knew we were going to be pretty good. I didn't think anybody else thought we were going to be pretty good, which was okay. But our kids believed it. And by that time we were, in the summertime, people, we were running 30, 40 kids a day in the weight room. So everybody was excited, and it was kind of a culture change. And that was just the little nudge that bunch needed. But, the next year winning 11, we all knew we were going to be pretty good that year. And that was a very bittersweet year. I think we left the state championship, at least attempt, laying on the 3-yard line against Boonville that night. And we many times have I ran that play through my head, and our kids executed and did everything they had to do to win. We just made a mistake there at the end of the game and fumbled the ball. But that that's football. It happens. And but I really believe we could have made a push to play in the state championship that year if we don't make that mistake.
You talk about wins and losses, and you talked about the play at Boonville, but at the end of the day, Coach, I think it's interesting because all the coaches that we've talked to, they remember when they see players, whether it be at around town, if they run into a player at a college game, if they run into a former player, unfortunately at funerals. The tie that binds is that they either played or coached at Bruce. And you made a difference, and you made a difference in a lot of people's lives. That has to be pretty rewarding when you have that conversation with a former player that says, Coach, man, I appreciate what you did.
Oh, it is. It is. And I stay in touch with a couple of the players that, we had. They've all moved on, and they should, I hope they think back about the days positively. I know I do, for sure. I was tough on them. There ain't no doubt about that. I know they're going to remember those things too. But football's a game where you have to be a little bit hard. You got to be a little bit tough, and or nobody would do it. And you got to be pushed. So as far that's, I hope that is what kind of helps these kids get through the harder parts of this life. And this, life ain't getting no easier. That's for sure. And my hopes is those are the things that we were able to kind of teach at that age that will kind of get them through the humps today. And, perseverance and the whole thing, those are cliches and corny words to a lot of people. They mean a lot to us. And, when I see our kids and see them doing successful, see their pictures out there, it just makes me happy.
Made the transition, as you alluded to a moment ago, a little bittersweet, but you transitioned to the principal at Bruce, hired James Ray. Coach Ray now down at George County. Coach Ray stands as the coach with the most wins in Bruce Trojan history at 66. So he did a phenomenal job as head coach. What did you learn as a head coach and as an assistant coach? Did you transition towards administration? And what do you kind of remember as you reflect back on as administrator back in Bruce?
Well, it was very, very similar, the school situation at the time, like a team. We had a great core bunch of teachers. And then we had some that just frankly, didn't quite need to be there. And, once you get your team pared down to who wants to be there and who's passionate about what you're doing, then it's going to get better. And just changing the culture, trying to get it to where everybody feels like, they're an important piece and they're supported was very important. And I think we did that. And I'm very proud of the time I spent as a principal at Bruce. And the staff was just phenomenal, and it was for me, it was the same deal. You know, whatever those players needed, I made sure that I tried to get it. And whatever those teachers needed, I made sure I tried to get it. And once you get in that position, then it's all about performance. Let them go. And I think we were able to do that.
Chapter 6, Field of Dreams. Here's head coach James Ray. You are the winningest coach in Bruce football history with 66 wins. You are the last coach to win 10-plus games. You are the last coach to have anything past the first round of the playoffs. And you are the last coach to have a winning record at Bruce. The amount of success you had, and you're the only coach that won over 60 games. And
right.
So
9+ years, 9 years in a row in the playoff.
I knew you had a lot of success here, but I didn't realize it until I started digging into the numbers. Do you remember when Mark called you?
Actually, I had contacted him.
Okay.
I didn't know it was Mark either. I thought who was the principal for Mark. But anyway, so I saw the job listed.
Ricky Vaughn. Vaughn,
yes. So I saw the job listed on the MHSA website, and it had his number. So I kept trying to call Ricky Vaughn. Mark was filling in for him at that time. So finally got in touch with Mark, thought I was talking to Ricky, and told him I was interested in applying for the job.
What did you know about Bruce? Because were you at Taylorsville?
I was at Taylorsville at the time, yes. So not a whole lot other than I remember when I was in high school at Hernando, we used to play Bruce. That was on our schedule. And I just vaguely remember going to a game there one time, not knowing a whole lot about it, but I just knew it was back in North Mississippi, which appealed to me as well.
When you were at Taylorsville, did you coach under Coach Broyles when he won all those state championships?
No. I got there in 2000. So Shannon White was the head coach there. He had just won a state championship, I think the year before, maybe the 2 years before I got there. So, I mean, that success. Of course, you know, Kim was always from Taylorsville, so I knew about Taylorsville from in college. And I was coaching in Tennessee. And a job came open, and Kim's stepdad called me and says, "We got a job open here. If you want it, you need to come on." And went to Taylorsville in 2000 after spending 6 years in Tennessee. And so I already knew about the history of Taylorsville. We won the state championship my third year there. Probably should have won it a couple more years in my tenure. But I mean, just being at Taylorsville and seeing under really good coaching and seeing what 2A ball looks like and should look like, I thought that benefited me going to Bruce tremendously.
Did you meet Kim when you took the job down there? Or did you know her prior to you taking the job?
Yeah. We went to school. We went to college together.
Okay.
We met her at Delph State.
So that was your tie-in to Taylorsville, was her father-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to Taylorsville on the weekends or for spring breaks since I was a sophomore in college.
So you were not familiar with Mark Grubbs at all prior to this job?
Didn't know him until I walked in and met him.
That's interesting. And here's the thing: we had a great talk with Coach Grubbs, and he was almost sad in a point because we were going back. You know, Coach had a lot of success at Bruce. Had 2 10-win seasons. One of those years he was 11-2, and talked about a couple of plays here and there that maybe or should have went his way. That was, of course, back in 2004. But he said, "Brad, man, I had a great opportunity to step in as principal, but I'm not really sure I was ready to turn over the whistle." And I don't know if you I didn't know if you ever knew that, but
he told me that too. We talked about that all the time.
Yeah, said he was a little hesitant, but when he did, I mean, you just took it and ran. I mean, that first year you went 7-5, but you followed that up with a 9-3, and then like you talked about earlier, or we talked about off air, playoffs every year for the most part. I mean, there were maybe 1 or 2 down years. But
my last year is the only year we didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah. And so what did Coach Grubbs tell you about the program that maybe you didn't know when you were interviewing or when you were talking about the job?
I mean, he just told me it was a bunch of country kids that loved to play football, that the town would support, that, you know, in the interview he said the 2 most important people in town are the head football coach and the First Baptist Church preacher. So this job, he wanted somebody that understood that and had been in a really good program, and to bring that to this town, he thought this town was ready for that and would support it.
Going back to that 2012 year, I remember that one well. 11-4. We had a really good team that year. What are some things you remember about that? And if you kind of rewind just a moment, you got better with the exception of 09 and 010. You got better every single year. And then, of course, you had the 10-win season in 11, the 11-win season in 12. What kind of led up to that year, and what did you learn as a head coach that you felt like you were growing, and then the kids were growing, and all of a sudden you're rewarded with a pretty deep playoff run?
Yeah, so, that 12 group of seniors, they were extremely talented. First of all, you can't do all that stuff if you don't have talented players. And they were extremely talented. And we were in a situation when they were freshmen, if you'll remember, we didn't have a big senior class.
Yeah.
There were some discipline problems that we let a few seniors go. And so we were forced to play those freshmen as freshmen. And, we managed to scrape enough wins together to get into the playoffs those years. But they were the right group to start like that. And I think that's why you see the build-in wins in the next 3 years, because they had that experience. So, we knew from an early time in those kids' career that they were the guys that we built this program around. We started out slow in the playbook building. What can they do well? Let's be successful. And then as they got older and more experienced, we started adding to the playbook and putting more, getting more complicated in the things that we were doing, which led to that 2012 year where we played for the North half, and should have won that game. I mean, we had a lead and let it go, and then had a drive at the end to win it, or at least to kick a field goal and tie. And just, when you're at that level in the playoffs, you can't make mistakes, and we made a few mistakes, and it cost us the game. But that was a fun time because I saw the growth of those kids throughout the years, and to watch it come down to that night was pretty special.
It was it's interesting, Coach. I've talked to a number of coaches for this project, and it's ironic that you have fallen in line with the one thing that every single coach has done. You referenced a season back in 09 when we didn't have a very good year. Now, we had a non-conference schedule that was brutal, but we won enough playoff games to get to the playoffs. Won enough district games to get to the playoffs. That was the season that you immediately called out. Now, it wasn't about wins and losses, but it was about how those freshmen grew, and you put them in because you knew that was the future of the program. Fast forward a couple of years later, and you're in the North half. Yeah. It's pretty neat how your mind works, and it's pretty neat how you can kind of go back and look at things from 10,000 feet and understand that you saw a bigger picture. And I think Bruce has been better because of it, because of that great season you had, both 11 and in 12.
Right. And, and even in 13, when we graduated all those seniors, and I think there was like 4 or 5 that went on to play college out of that group.
Yeah.
We still made it back to the second round that next year, with basically starting over. And then the next year we went to the third round. So I think that success came because those kids growing through that program in 10, 11, and 12 saw what it took to be successful.
You've been a head coach at a couple of different spots. How was the program when you took it over? What was the mindset? What are some things you had to change, maybe practice protocols or whatever? What was the overall program stability at the point you took it over back in 06?
It was really in good shape. I mean, Coach Grubbs had done a tremendous job of really getting them back into the playoff and the mindset. What I felt like we struggled with early in my career at Bruce was that we were getting tired of football by the time playoffs got, and I would always tell those guys that when I was at Taylorsville, we really didn't get ramped up there until playoffs.
Yeah.
We just kind of got through the season, especially the non-district games. But then district started, and those kids started feeling a little bit more. And then by playoffs, we were at our peak and going. And I felt like my first year or two at Bruce, we were on the downside of the season and didn't really want to go forward. So I thought that we did a lot of things to encourage our kids and to put a lot of emphasis on the second half of the season. And we did that through our off-season workouts. I mean, we tried to make them as tough as we could so they could push through and see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I thought for the most part we got that done.
And I think that goes absolutely into my next question is our district record when you were the head coach was really good. And I don't know the totals, but I know this. For 4 seasons, we were 4-1 in the division, and that's really good. And that, we always played in a really tough division. So that obviously plays into your tactics of getting the kids to understand that, sure, non-conference games are important. We want to learn, we want to get better, but our reason for practice, our reason for being here is it all starts in the district.
Absolutely, and I mean that's every team you ever coach on. Those are the games that matter. Those are the ones that are important. Those are the ones that determine your success going forward. So I mean, we got to be ready for when those games get there.
What are some things you remember at Bruce? What are some, maybe a game or two, or maybe some assistant coaches that you had? Maybe a particular player. What's some things you remember fondly on when you think back at Bruce?
Well, just first of all, my kids grew up there.
Yeah.
I mean, when we came there, my son was just starting the first or second grade. My daughter was in kindergarten, and they spent 10 years there. So that Bruce molded who my kids are, and I'm so grateful for that. So that's first and foremost. Second, it's just, you start naming kids. You got Richard Freeland, who was just a beast at running back when I first got there.
Yeah.
Went on to have a good college career. And then you got your Jacob Samuels, and I'm going to forget names, so I hate to mention names. But, you got a ton of kids that were just really good high school football players, and they enjoyed being around the game, and we enjoyed being around them. And then, you just go through each season, and there's always players that did well and performed for you. Davis Brown, Zay Armstrong, and, I was in Oxford back during the summer and ran into Zay on the square in Oxford, and that was the best day of my life. I just reconnecting with him and Dante Armstrong, and just there's so many kids that came through there that were so just really good football players, really good kids. It was just a joy to be around those guys, and once we established our mindset of we want to be a playoff team every year, and we don't want to just get to playoffs, we want to win in the playoffs, and watch those guys turn the corner was really special. Coaching staffs, Brian Maddox, Alan Clark, they were mainstays in those coaching staffs. They were with me the entire 10 years. And that's also added to our success in the fact that we didn't have a lot of turnover at coaches.
Yeah.
We would, towards the end, it got to be more, but the first 6 or 7 years, I mean, we had the same coaching staff, and that has a lot to do with our success too, just that stability there. And those kids get to know those guys, and our coaches got to know the kids, and it was really a family aspect. So I mean, I look back on Bruce and fond memories. I enjoyed my time there. I hated it ended the way it ended, but I would go back and relive that life every day.
I had an interesting conversation with Donnie Logan, who was an assistant at Bruce all the way up to 99, and then he was my junior high coach. And, Coach, I know you really well. I know you do things the right way. And one thing that Coach pointed out, I went back and we talked about some championships that we had, and he talked about, and he said, Brad, let me stop you for a moment. He says, here's what makes me smile. Not the wins, not the touchdowns. He says, whenever I can connect with a former player and they come up and they say, Coach, you made a difference in my life. I'm a changed person because of the discipline, because you taught me right from wrong, because I didn't have a father, I didn't have a mother, but you were the person that stood in the gap for me, and I want to thank you. And Coach says that people come up to him all the time, and they say that. And I cannot imagine how many lives that you've touched, not only at Bruce, but at Taylorsville, at George County, but specifically at Bruce. I know that's important to you, and you talked about seeing some of your former players. And it's really cool, I know, when you get to reconnect and you have those conversations with those former players.
Oh, it's absolutely awesome. And, you know, that's the only reason I'm on social media is to keep up with these guys. And, you know, I try to follow everybody that played for me and, you know, just keep up with them. And they'll reach out to me. I mean, I just had a conversation with Richard Freeland not too long ago. I mean, we talk all the time. And, you know, just that's why you do what we do. You know, it's not for the fame. It's not just like Coach Donnie said, for the wins. All those are important at the time. You know, winning's important during that season, but after that season, it's about the relationships that you build and the connections you make for a lifetime. I mean, we got so many guys that played for us that are in the teaching and coaching profession from Bruce. So many guys have gone off to be successful in whatever they've tried, you know, endeavor that they've taken and have families and raising kids, and it's just a joy to watch that happen.
Chapter 7, I am a Bruce Trojan. Here's my dad, head coach Daryl Logan.
So when did you play?
Well, I started playing for the Trojans in the 7th grade, and Billy Wales was my coach, and then I played 8th and 9th grade. That was Waverly King, and in high school in 10th and 11th grade, I was a Trojan from my sophomore and junior year under Walter Ahrens, and Coach Waverly King was assistants. And in my senior year, I played. No, let me get this right. Coach Ahrens was my sophomore coach, and J.V. Swindle was my junior and senior coach in Bruce High School.
And Ole Miss fans will enjoy this. Waverly King is Reagan King's grandfather.
Oh, okay.
Reagan King punted at Ole Miss.
Yeah,
because I think Reagan, he punted at Ackerman.
Yeah, that's right. And Coach King still comes by the antique shop sometime and talks to me, and he's been by there several times because I think he had a granddaughter at Ole Miss, and he comes by, and he was really a good guy. He was a great coach and just always full of joy and fun, and he made football a lot of fun. And Coach Swindle, he was my high school, my junior and senior year coach, and I never will forget. He always told me that he said, you know, Daryl, I think you'll make a great coach. Yeah. And that kind of steered me.
Who said that?
Coach J.V. Swindle.
Okay.
And he was a good man, and he did a great job. And I tell you, he was a big inspiration in my coaching career to be a coach. Coach Billy Wales was, Coach Ahrens, all of them was big role models in my life. But I remember Coach Swindle would always tell us, he says, you do everything the best you can do it. It doesn't matter if it's take out the garbage, wash the dishes. He says, do everything the best of your ability, but most of all, put God first in your life. And I've never forgotten that.
And it's interesting. Of course, you're the last one I've talked to. I've talked to a lot of other guys came before you, came after you. Taking a look at what's interesting to me is Phil, Dennis, all had incredible records. And then you look at someone, you talked about Walter Ahrens, J.V. Swindle, 7-45.
Yeah.
Didn't win a lot of games.
No. But I tell you, Brad, we were in a competitive conference. The Little Ten Conference was powerful back in the days of the 60s. And when I played in 67, 68, and 69, we played teams like Starkville. We were a little school. We played teams like West Point, Aberdeen, Amory, New Albany. And, you know, we played some big-time school, Oxford. And you know, it was hard for us to compete. But my senior year, we competed because we beat New Albany, we tied Amory, we I think probably Calhoun City beat us 16-7. I remember that game in 1969. I missed an extra point and a field goal, and we lost.
What was the score?
That was my sophomore year, 7-6 in my sophomore year. My junior year, they beat us pretty good. They played in the Tom-Bigby Conference, and they had a pretty good team. But then in my senior year, they beat us 16-7. Now let me tell you this story. We were up 6-0, and right before half, I was playing tight end, and Larry Jennings was playing quarterback, and he hit me in the end zone, and he hit me right in the chest. And Boyd Cole from Calhoun City, when that ball hit me in the chest, he hit me in the back, and that ball just flew out of there. I felt I would have won the game because they came back and they got in a groove, and they beat us. I think it was like 16-6 or something like that.
That was your senior year?
That was my senior year. And
but now, you obviously didn't win a lot of games, but all conference? You made all conference?
I did, all Little 10.
And then you headed to Northwest. How was that?
Yeah, well, you know, I played for Billy Joe Bearcocks, and I played on a defensive side and started, and I wouldn't take nothing for it. It was a lot of hard work, and I still think about Coach Cox a lot. He was a tough man to play for.
Yeah, we were joking, talking about Gulf Coast and East Mississippi and some of those old coaches. They were something else.
They were old school. I can tell you, they were
old
tough.
school, which means they cussed a lot and they didn't let you drink any water.
Yeah, we didn't get many water breaks. I can tell you that. We might get a little handful of ice every once in a while. But you know, it's changed, Brad. And Brad, before we go any further, I want to thank you for doing this podcast, and thank you for doing all the work that you've put into it, and these coaches that have coached at Bruce High School. Because I tell you, I'm a Bruce Trojan from heart. I went from the 1st grade to the 12th grade. I've been a Trojan. And I
think we talked about that. You and Jamal are the only two that actually played at Bruce and were head coaches.
Yeah. And, you know, they always say it's hard to come back home and coach. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because I put a lot more pressure on myself when I was at Bruce than I did at any other school.
We'll get to that in just a moment when you came to Bruce. But when you and Mama got married and then went off, your first stop was Van Cleve.
Yeah, spent 2 years there as a head football coach, junior high school. The head junior high football coach at Van Cleve, Coach Alton Waltman was the head coach of the high school, and I had 2 good years there. Sandra and I enjoyed being on the coast. We enjoyed our time together there, and I go back from time to time, and fixing to go back on the 15th and watch Van Cleve play. And I like to go to where I've coached before and see if I can see some of the old guys that I coached, because I loved all my players, and I tried to treat them all the same. Now, I may not have all the time, but I tried to.
You come back, a lot of people don't know, you didn't come back to Bruce. Where did you come back to after Van Cleve?
It's Calhoun City.
Yeah.
I spent 5 years, and I was head coach in junior high for 5 years, and I coached under Billy Wells the first year. The second year, I coached 3 years under Mike Justice.
Yeah.
He come to Calhoun City then. And then Coffeyville opened up in 1980, the head coaching job.
First head coaching job.
First head coaching job, 1980. And I went to Coffeyville and stayed there for 5 years, the first sting. I went twice. I went to Coffeyville, went to Bruce, went to Coffeyville, went back to Bruce. So,
First head coaching job at Coffeyville.
Never had a winning season.
But you learned a lot I'm sure, from all your coaches.
Oh, yes.
You learned a lot down at Van Cleve, and I think, just from talking to you, the experience you got from Calhoun City just felt like there were brighter days. And I know that you didn't win a ton at Coffeyville, but my goodness, the amount of relationships you built, the people to this day that see you, that you coached in Coffeyville.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot. And that, obviously catapulting you towards that day in 1985 when you take that first Bruce job. What happened there, and what did your dad tell you when you went through it?
Well, Dad, he kind of knew about this coaching stuff, and matter of fact, he really didn't want me to come because Mama didn't ever tell me this till after he had passed away, but in 1985 the job opened up, and Terry Allen, great coach, had a great. He left me in good shape when he told Mr. Edwards, I think it was Mr. Edwards, that he would recommend Darrell Logan to come and coach at Bruce. And so I think Terry put my name in the pot, and and of course, when you coach a team and you recommend somebody, that tells me that
put his neck out there for you.
That's right.
He told us, and when I interviewed him, that had a lot to do with why he took the Water Valley job, because he knew that if you got the job would be in good hands.
Yeah, and he had a group of juniors.
He also told me he regretted that he left because of the team he had coming back.
Let me tell you, he left a great group of juniors, and for the next 2 years we lost maybe 6 games. I don't remember exactly, but we went 8, and maybe it was. I don't remember.
In 3 years, you were 22-9. I mean that
22-9.
Yeah.
So we lost probably 4 and 5 or something. I never had a losing season at Bruce because of Terry and Dennis Robbins, and because that first.
Yeah, that was back when we were in 3A.
That's right.
The first year in '85, you go 8-3.
Yeah.
The next year you go 7-3. And then the following year, you go 7-3 again.
Yeah.
That's playing Senatobia, Charleston. That's playing the big heavyweights from back in the day.
Exactly, and Lafayette.
Lafayette, yeah.
Oh, I remember when they had Sullins, and Sinatra was a junior, and I mean that when Sinatra Armstrong was a junior, we were undefeated, beat Senatobia 4-0, and we went to Lafayette, and they beat us. And Sullins hit Sinatra and had messed up his rotator cuff. He couldn't throw the ball at all, and I had to change quarterbacks and put him at receiver and then we played after Lafayette. Then Knott couldn't play. Then Justin Ellard, I played him against Fulton, and Justin was throwing the ball to Sinatra, and Sinatra was running. And we was in the ball game, but right before half, Justin breaks his ankle.
Right.
So can't even walk. So I'm down to third string quarterback. So I have to put I put Sinatra back at quarterback, but he couldn't throw. But he could run, and we made it through in the last couple of games, and Justin got his foot back on par. Actually, he wore about a size 12 shoe. He actually wore about a 9.5. But we had that ankle cast up, and we put him in there to throw, and he could hobble back there and throw. We beat Independence, I think, 7-6 or something like that.
And one of those players that played for both my dad and Coach Arbor has a great story. And it goes to show just how much my dad loved his students and he loved his players. Here's defensive back Francis Petty. You come along 1985 to 1989, and we talked about it a moment ago, Coach Arbor. What do you remember about Coach, and, especially in junior high?
I remember that he was a tough coach, and he treated everybody fairly. He was a well coach. He didn't put up with no stuff.
He reminded me of someone you'd see on the TV like a drill sergeant. I mean, it was his way or the highway, but he was really disciplined.
Yeah, he was really disciplined.
You go back in 85, of course, that was my dad had come in, and he coached from 85 and 86, and then you played for Coach Arbor in high school from 87 to 88. What were some of the transitions out from my dad over to Coach Arbor, and kind of what were some offensive changes and defensive changes under Coach?
kickoff return. Y'all on everything else except offense.
What did you like about defense? You know, you talk about not playing a lot of offense. What did you enjoy playing? I know Coach Donnie Logan was your defensive coordinator.
I like playing like we used to have like the rover back.
Yeah.
Or we'll have one person just with key on one person or with key on the quarterback. Everywhere he went, you went. I like that position there.
Yeah, they call that, as we've gotten older, they call that like a star or a rover position. Kind of a hybrid, I think, mostly between like a linebacker and a cornerback.
What off defense we was running.
What do you remember about your junior and senior year? Anything really stand out? Any players or any games that stand out to you?
Well, that was back when I think it was P.D. Pippen and David Colvin back. And we was on the kickoff team. So I went down there wide open.
Yeah.
I went down there and got hit by both of them side the head and cracked my hip. So I walked onto the field house.
Yeah.
Got on the bus. Then next thing I know, your dad drove up at the house. Francis, you all right? I looked at him like, Coach, what are you doing here? He said, we're going to the doctor.
Yeah.
I just had a concussion.
Yeah.
And I told him, he said, where your mom and dad? I said, they're in Tupelo with my granddad. He was in the hospital at that time. So he said, that's where we're going to. We're going to Tupelo.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up now that he put me in. He never would let me go to sleep the whole way down there. He talked the whole time down. He said, don't you go to sleep now.
Yeah.
So we finally got down there, and then every day he would call and check on me. And that's what I liked about the coaches. They would, if you got hurt or something like that, they would call and check on you to see if everything was all right.
Any particular games you remember back in the day, and any of them that really stand out, wins or loss, but anything really stand out?
I think it was either Coldwater or Hernando. We played them. I think we played them about 7 or 8 overtime games. We just kept, everyone knew how you get the score. Then you had to try to just kept going into overtime. And I think we played about 7 or 8 games that night.
Yeah.
Going back and forth till we finally won. I think that was the longest game we ever played.
When you think about Bruce football and the history and all the people that you met, all the people that you've seen play, and as a player and as a fan, what's it mean to you to be a Bruce Trojan?
It means a lot. It means that everybody mostly grew up together. Everybody knew everybody's parents. All parents knew the kids, and just like the parents were just like your parents.
Yeah.
Your parents went at the game, the other parents would take that. That's what I liked about all that. Everybody was just a whole unique family. I'm just going to say that.
The 85, when you took the job, and I sent you that interview. That was your very first. That was before your first game against Calhoun City in '85.
That's right.
Do you remember that interview?
I do. I don't remember the interview. I remember that.
Do you remember the first? You remember the Calhoun City game that night?
I do. I know.
You
exactly.
remember thinking, "I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm wearing this shirt.
Exactly.
I can't believe I played here and I'm coaching.
I played here on this field. I'm coaching here, and it was just a great experience, a great feeling, and we was playing none other than the Wildcats.
Right.
The team that I had coached over at Calhoun City.
That you knew everybody over there.
Yeah.
Head coach most of them.
Yeah.
2 years go by, 3 years, you head out. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I go back to Coffeyville. There's a year in there when I spent as administrator under Mr. Freeman. Okay?
Right.
And then at the end of the year, Coach Mark Yarber had taken the Bruce job, and during the end of the year, I got a call that I could go back to Coffeyville and get a little more money.
Yeah.
And so I go back down to Coffeyville, and I start building from the bottom up. I start from 7th, 8th, and 9th. I coached junior high football. I coached 10th, 11th, and 12th, and I coached high school football. Now, the first time I went back, we really didn't win many that first year, but that second year was about the time we beat Water Valley. Had my first winning season at Coffeyville.
I remember that.
And we beat Water Valley, and they had never beat them in the history of the school. And But now Coffeyville hadn't been playing football probably since about 1970.
Yeah.
When I went down there in 1980. But I'd gone back in 89 and coached. And then the third year, I go back. After the third year, Dennis Robbins played for a state championship in Jackson in 1991. And I had a son playing it on the junior high team.
We had a really good team. Donnie and I talked about this.
You were playing on the junior high team.
Yes, we were really good.
My son.
Y'all were better.
And we had we played the first game of the year.
And y'all beat us.
And we beat us 6-0.
Y'all, Coffeyville beat Bruce 6-0.
That's right.
Yeah.
With you on the team.
Yeah.
The last game.
We didn't lose it. We didn't lose another game.
That's right. And we didn't lose a game. And we played for the district championship game.
Why was junior high and high school in the same district?
Yeah, it was. I guess.
So why did we play a district championship?
I think it was conference.
Maybe it was.
I
just know that it was a huge crowd. It was like a high school game.
I know. And but we.
It wasn't particularly close that game, was it?
No, we kind of put it on y'all pretty good, pretty good bid. But let me say it was like 24-7 or something.
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
But
we were tore up. We had a Mega Spearman
who
would play at Ole Miss. We had Casey Clark at linebacker.
That's right.
We had Jason Jenkins at defensive tackle.
Yeah.
We had Anthony Spencer that could fly like the wind. We had a great team.
Yeah.
And we got popped that night. Y'all were really good.
Well,
and that team, had you stayed, would have been a force in about 3 or 4 years.
Well, yeah, they were a force. Even I didn't stay because Al Reed took the program back over. But I tell you, when I got back to Coffeyville
that night
after we beat y'all in that district championship, when I was coming back to Bruce on 330, driving a little Toyota pickup.
Yep, the green one.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to have my mother and my wife sitting on the home side and my son playing.
Because Mama was pulling for me.
Oh, yeah. And sitting on the home, and me coaching the opposite team.
Yeah.
So it wasn't but a few days.
And Dennis leaves.
Well, no. What happened was I went into Mr. Freeman. I said, Mr. Freeman, I said, I told him exactly the situation I was in. I told him my two sons are here, actually. And I said, I don't want to coach against them, and the only way I can be with them is for me to come back to Bruce. And if you'll let me come back to Bruce and give me a teaching job, and I'll coach for free. I'll help Dennis do whatever he wants to. I say I'll do whatever. And I talked to him. I said, if there's an opening, I'd sure like you to consider me. Well, here's what happened. It wasn't, I don't know how long, but Coach Robbins, Mr. Freeman calls me and says, Darryl, I got a job for you. I said, what is it? He said, head football coach at Bruce. I said, where's Dennis going? He said, he's going to South Pontotoc.
Yeah.
And I said, oh. I thought, my goodness. I said, he must not going to be having much. Or don't think he is. But anyway, I said.
He told me, he said it. He, was tired of the drive. And he was honest. He said, Brad, they gave me a little more money.
Yeah.
And he said I shouldn't have left.
Well, I got a little more money at Coffeyville.
Yeah.
And but now when I came back to Bruce, and in 92, all right,
he left your team.
He did. We had some horses, and I was grateful to have the opportunity to come back. I really I wanted to just help him.
Yeah.
In my heart, because I had been at Bruce as the head coach. My daddy had told Mama, said, well, I wish that boy hadn't have done that. But I did, but Daddy
twice.
Twice. But in 85, when I first came, he told Mother, I wish he hadn't have come to Bruce. Because I was from here, everybody. But this is the thing. He never saw me coach a game at Bruce.
No, because he died in 1985.
That's right, that summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You take the job. I'm interested in this. Dennis had taken the offense of Mark Yarber and turned it on its head. Mark ran the wing tee / wishbone.
Yeah.
Dennis comes in, and he doesn't run the run and shoot, but he sure doesn't run the wishbone.
No.
What did you do offensively in 92? Did you kind of leave some things the same? Did you lean on Phil to say, what do you just read?
Yeah.
What did you do?
Oh, let me tell you. I was always, and I guess Dennis knew that because I coached against Bruce. I played Bruce at Coffee with him.
Yeah.
Those years. And matter of fact, I think the last game we played for where they won the state, at halftime it's 3-0. And they beat us 10-0 or 14-0. I can't remember how much they won, but I was a 50s man. I've been a 50s man all my life.
Talk about defense.
Yeah. Dennis was a 50s man. He run cheap, and I was familiar with the defense.
Offensively,
I had run the I before. He run the I. We run split back some, but not much, and we run some wing T. During that time that Dennis didn't run, we put that in. And but I ran a different passing attack, completely different numbers, different calls. But as far as the running game went, we run the counter, we run the tack, and we run the
you turn around and get it for Roger Armstrong.
That's right on the tack, and we run the quick pitch, and we but I knew some of those things, and I'd watched films of Dennis play, and Donnie was the defensive coordinator.
Did you just he just stayed where he was at?
And we made and I shifted. I did a few things different than I did in my 50s because that cheap defense, I liked it a lot better, and we just stayed with it. I mean, but why mess it up? I mean, the team knew how to run it, and we run zone defense in the secondary. I hardly ever run a man to man. Not on goal line.
In that 92 season, the two games I remember specifically are the game against Oklahoma and then in the state championship game. That Oklahoma game, 14-12. I mean, it was close.
Or 7-0.
Was that it?
I think so, Brad.
Did Kevin Austin catch a touchdown pass? Okay, it was 7-0. I was confusing that game with another one. Were we pretty much an underdog going into that?
I just think it's a toss-up because we had a good ball team.
Yeah, they were good too. Remember, they had Andrew Aldridge at center.
I tell you what, Benji Parker played a well.
He did. He made about 25 catches.
I'm telling you, he was all over the place, and we just had some good players. Malcolm
Williams.
Yes,
he could go now.
He could go. Yeah,
we had a good offensive line, and that was a big year. We win.
Yep.
I think that was North Half, wasn't it?
No.
Who was
North
Half?
West Lounge.
We did with Kiefer McGee.
That's right. I remember Brad Emery running him down. I thought he was going to score.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about he ran him down.
I don't know how he did that.
I don't either.
He'll tell you about it to this day. I remember that.
Yeah.
I know this. I remember you telling the story long after that game is they stopped running Kiefer at halftime and started throwing the football. And I don't know why they did.
I don't know either because I'd have kept pounding him. Man,
we were the beneficiary of that. Go down to Jackson and play a really good Philadelphia team and just come up a little short.
Yeah.
It's raining buckets.
Yeah, and we led 8-6 or 8-7 in the fourth quarter, and we fired
bobble
up.
A snap.
Yeah.
Joey gets the extra point, throws it in the end zone for 2. Remember that?
That's right.
That's how we went up 8-7.
That's right.
They go up 7-0. We score 2-point conversion. It's 8-7.
That's right, and it's fourth quarter.
Yes.
Midway fourth quarter.
Yeah, feeling good.
And we're about maybe midfield or they're 40, and we get them in a bind. We got them fourth down.
Yeah.
I'm talking about fourth and long.
Yeah.
Now I don't know how long, but here's what happens. They snap the ball. He drops back, and we're pressuring. He gets out of it. He finds a man downfield, out in the flats. Malcolm's he's in his coverage in perfect position, throws the ball, and it just goes right over the tip of Malcolm's fingers, and the boy catches it, makes the first down, and they drive in and score.
Yeah.
And we lose the state championship game.
You fast forward, and it stings, but you look back on it, and it was one heck of a year. The second stint in Bruce, 25-10, and a lot of those are big division wins.
Yeah.
And you step down. 94.
Well, yeah, and I wish I would have tried to stay on, but I got into some complications with cancer, and I was diagnosed, and I had a huge tumor in my abdomen, and so most of the last, next to the last, we went to West Lowndes. I didn't coach West Lowndes in South Pontotoc, and that's when you was a junior.
I was a junior in '94. Yeah.
And
because our sophomore year we played in the Red Hills Classic.
That's right.
We were like maybe 7-3 or something. Didn't make the playoffs.
No, didn't make the playoffs. But Calhoun City, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It
was that way for a while.
But what happened? I was in the hospital in the South Pontotoc game. They did surgery on me or opened me up, biopsied, and just sent me to Baptist East in Memphis. And I was in Baptist East when we played South Pontotoc. And the next Friday night, I was able to come to the game just to ride up there in the van.
Yeah.
Satch then brought me to the van, parked in the end zone. And but I had chemotherapy. I went through stem cell transplant that year.
Yep.
After that, went through 6 weeks of radiation every day at Memphis. And here's what happened. I coached spring football that year through that, even though I was going through that.
I remember that. I remember you had the bag.
Yeah, but I coached spring football, and then in the summer, I was to report to Memphis. Let's see, and I was going to take chemo every day for 6 weeks, and that was going to run into September. And so I couldn't be at the football field, and I couldn't be in Memphis. So that was a tough decision. I didn't resign. I didn't talk to Phil about the job till right before the season was going to start. And I knew he was the best for the job because he knew the offense, and he knew Dunny knew the defense. And so I asked, Phil wanted it, I think, and I asked him if he'd take it, or told him I'm going to have to be in Memphis to step, and I just stepped back.
This was back in '94 when non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was much more severe than it is now. I mean, they've come a long way with treatments, and I very much remember in the '94 season baseball when we took a crew to Memphis and did platelets.
Yeah.
And came back and played baseball that night against East Webster.
Yeah.
And my mom brought me up there, and then she took us home.
That's right.
The '95 season, do you remember much about it? My senior year?
I went to every game. I tried to go to every game.
When did you get we think things are coming up, we think things are getting better? When did you start feeling that?
In the spring.
After the football season?
Uh-huh. When y'all went to the senior prom.
Yeah.
Wasn't it on the Mississippi River?
It was, yes, with Riverboat in Memphis.
And it was Good Friday.
It was.
And doctor told me I was in remission.
That would have been the March or April.
That's right. He said I was in remission, and of course he had to keep out. But then through the summer, I still had to I started taking radiation in August, something like that.
When
or July, I can't remember.
During the '94 season, you were kind of back and forth on whether you were going to coach or not. At what point were the doctors not so favorable? Do you remember that?
Oh no, they were favorable
the whole time.
Oh, Dr. Schwartzberg, he said we're going to get you healed.
Yeah.
And that's why he was so aggressive with my cancer. He went with stem cell transplant. High dose.
And that was a big deal back then. I mean, nobody had really heard about that.
Well, there was 4 in the West Clinic at that time had the same disease I had, same cancer
Yeah.
and everything, going through stem cell transplant, and I'm the only one that made it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they was a young boy, maybe 20, 22 years old. They was a high school football official. I can't remember his name. Sandra, what was
Stouts.
Yeah.
Stouts.
Well, high school, we talked from time to time,
Yeah.
and we was in the myelosuppressant unit together at the same time. And I remember walking down by his room when I could get up,
Yeah.
and looking in, and he'd be laying in there.
Yeah.
And couldn't nobody come in and out because the blood count was at 0 for about 2 weeks. And
How long did this go on? How long did you fight this? From
when I left stem cell transplant, I started up.
Yeah.
And it was an ordeal in my life, and
You made it
coaching career.
When you were healed, and I think it's awful ironic that it happened on Good Friday.
Mhm.
What's some things you remember about that day? What you make some decisions, and what's the feeling? What's the thought process?
Well, I was excited that I was in remission. Now, he didn't say healed.
Right.
He said I was in remission.
But you had a bit of a roadmap at this point. All right, now I know I'm here.
And
Here's where I'm getting to, and I got me a roadmap.
That's right. And then when I kept going back to the cancer, he said, you need some radiation.
Yeah.
And so, and that was in August before the football season, and I couldn't be at the football field and the radiation center, and so that's the time that I decided I would step down, and I've been in it 22 years, and let the younger ones take over, but there's a lot of ifs and ands and buts.
Every interview I've had, there's been every single coach talks about the losses.
Yeah,
because that's what they think about.
Maybe I should have fought through it
yeah,
and stayed on. Because we had a great team coming back.
Yeah,
we had a great team.
Yeah, we were.
And I'll tell you, I'll always cherish the memories and the moments that I had at Bruce, and I'll cherish the moments that every player that I've ever coached, every time they see me, they come up to me.
Yeah.
And they say, Coach, you know what I remember about you most? I say, yeah, I probably do. And he say, and my students too. And say, you always told us you loved us.
Yeah.
And I mean it too. And I did. And I know a lot of days on the practice field and during the games and after the games that a lot of them might have thought I didn't love them.
Yeah.
Because, of the things that I said, but I did. And I hope they always remember. If that's what I want them to remember.
And
it's
they
not
will
to win, and
they will. And that's every coach that we've talked to. They specifically don't talk about the wins and losses. They talk about they want it to make a difference.
Exactly.
And they're so appreciative of the opportunity to do that. So many coaches. We lost Rudy. We lost Mark Yarber to cancer. We lost Coach Steele during COVID. So many players.
Hey,
and,
yeah.
It's the tie that binds. Is what I told Terry Allen is we all can come back and say we were Trojans.
Yeah.
And looking back over your career as a player and as a coach, it's got to be pretty rewarding to have those people walk up to you and talk about that. But I'll be honest with you, that I think it's really neat, too, that you've been able to say goodbye to some of these players because you've worked some of their funerals.
Exactly.
And,
Robbie Beckett was a great linebacker.
Great football player.
Yes. I mean, I think about him all the time. P.D. Pittman. I didn't do his service, but he's passed away. And, Bill Duke.
Yeah.
Back in 86, I think. And there's several of those young men that's gone on to be with the Lord. And I was trying, and I think about another thing is, off of that team, I can name you several coaches that played for me.
Yeah, Coach Grubbs and Coach Ray said the same thing.
Yeah, Benji.
Yeah.
Think about Kevin.
Kevin Austin did it for a
Kevin
while.
Austin,
He's now doing insurance, but he was at Morville for years.
Yeah. Scott Martin from Coffeyville.
Scott was a good one.
Yeah.
Is now, I think he's an assistant at Grenada, but was a head coach at Charleston.
I think Barry Armstrong coached down in Georgia. I think David Coleman works in a weightlifting area. Sinatra Armstrong coached. And I could probably go on and on. Aubrey Boring.
Yep.
Remember Aubrey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, little fullback. I remember he could run that trap, that fullback trap. Yeah.
You had a lot of good assistant coaches.
Brad
too.
Embry.
Brad Embry won a state championship in Water Valley.
Yeah.
Was a great coach. Was at Tupelo, Madison Central.
I thought I'd done mentioned him, but I had him on my mind the whole time.
You won a lot of games, but I think a lot of that is you haven't talked a lot about assistant coaches, but you inherited some when you came to Bruce.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah.
Who was with you the first time in '85?
Mark Yarber.
Yeah.
And we run pretty well, 50 defenses.
Yeah.
And then we run some wing T and I, and then I had, and when. I don't remember exactly who coached junior high then, but when I came back the second time, Donnie Logan coached junior high.
He and Greg, and then
Donnie was a big part of that.
It was huge. He was the junior high program.
I'm telling you, and I mean he sent them up.
I mean, we ran the same plays the high school ran.
That's right.
We ran the same defense, the same calls. Yeah. I think that's why things transitioned as well as they did.
And he really cared about those kids.
He loved it.
And he really cared about winning. I tell you, I did too. I mean, and he was a great assistant when I was at Bruce. When he was the second time I came back, Phil was a great assistant.
It's been a couple years. Do you ever get to where you miss it on Friday night?
Yeah. It's you always miss it, Brad. I do. And you just have to keep going forward.
I hope you've enjoyed an oral history into Bruce Trojan football titled, This is Trojan Football. It has been an absolute labor of love to be able to talk to so many former players and so many former coaches. Like we talked about, so many of those coaches are not with us any longer. So many of those players are not with us any longer. But they live on forever. They live on through you. They live on through me. I'm so proud to be a Bruce Trojan. I know you are too. I use the term often when talking with people about playing football at Bruce. It's the tie that binds. I say that with a lot of pride. Learned a lot on the football field. Learned a lot in the classroom. But I might have learned a little bit more out on the field. I want to thank so many people that helped make this oral history come to fruition. I want to thank all the coaches that joined me. To Coach Richard Russo, I couldn't envision a Bruce Trojan podcast without you a part of it. Thank you. Terry Allen was absolutely the best. Coach Donnie Logan, thank you. Dennis Robbins, Phil Ferguson, Mark Grubbs, and James Ray, thank you all. Special thank you to my dad. It was so much fun to sit there and talk Trojan football with him. And to be able to share it with you made it even more special. I want to thank former players John Earl Armstrong for joining us, and Francis Petty, two great former Trojans. I want to thank four of my dear friends that helped me through this process, bouncing off ideas and just being a good support staff. I want to thank my good friend Jody Dye, Brian Hunsucker, my two good friends Alan Blackwelder and Stephen Box. Thank you all. And last but not least, I want to thank my wife Melissa. I'm so fortunate to have the support staff with her and our two wonderful children, Evie and Sam. Thanks again for listening. And you never know what might be next. But for now, I hope you always remember that this is Trojan football.
A presentation of the Logan Media Network.